mean, in in the class. So I'm looking forward to it, and I think that is good also because most of us in the class are either working class people or people. Most of us are adults. So it also
Yeah.
means our retention won't be as it used to be when we're younger. I mean, the last time I was in class was probably 10 years ago, so I don't. It's not as easy as it used to be saying things. So going back to class now, I mean, every other thing I've done in law, this is my first thing outside of law. So this, I'm having to go back and I'm even speaking to my friends that are data scientists. So I'm not just in this class, I'm trying to say, you know what, I'm going back to this class because I need to like do data properly for because I'm an entertainment lawyer. So you know what, explain this thing to me. This is what I learned in class today. So I think that that's beautiful for me.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for your feedback, right? I really appreciate it. My major role is, or my major goal is to, or our major goal at Apita, right, is to transform technology and demystify it. Um, there's been too many, um, um, how do I put it, covered, covered or cloak um, around technology. You say it belongs to a few people, only people can learn it and all that. Well, I think now we need to be able to demystify it such that anybody, any field, right, especially in Africa, right, anybody can come into it and learn. So that is my goal, such that it becomes a major tool for people in Africa to be able to liberate themselves from whatever poverty, um, mind restrictions that we have that is hindering us from competing with the foreign or the Western world or even competing globally, right? That's my goal, right? So thank you for that feedback. Vivian, can I hear from you?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Actually, in as much as I was pretty much late to the class yesterday, I was able to catch like it was more like I even started with everybody because the explanations, then this the assignment you gave, the way you explained it, it was more like I didn't miss anything, from yesterday's class. And I don't know, I feel really excited because I was already feeling bad I was going to miss the class in as much as I was trying to run, to get home as early as possible. Since the class didn't start at the exact time, I had to, I dashed out to get something, and then I was held by traffic. But it was really, 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 really great. Yesterday's class was great. I mean, we did a hands-on stuff, more like the practicals, the create database, and some ambiguity that I had personally. I think I asked about it, and then you kind of gave me a deep insight, like a clarification about it, and I really perplexed, and I'm happy. Thank you so much, sir. I can hear you, sir. I don't know if it's from my end.
All right, can you hear me now?
Okay, great. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So I'm saying that thank you for the feedback. Our role is to, or our job is to um, make the introduction or entrance into whatever technology field that you have chosen or career that you have chosen easy for you so that you don't feel left out, right? And you don't feel swamped by information, right? And that's why I like to break things down so that everybody can get a quick understanding. So thank you. Thank you. John, can I have
Yesterday's class it was we started more of the practical side of things, and the explanation was really thorough, and really explained things well, and was easy to follow along. Even sometimes when I was not listening for some time, I could still catch up.
awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, John. IBK, how are you? Welcome. Can we get a feedback from can we get the feedback from yesterday's class?
Yesterday's class was interesting for me. At least it was my first class where I didn't have to run out of class and attend to work and all. It was interesting and educative seeing how the SQL database works and all, and getting to understand a little bit of the work process of for that database. Yeah, I think I enjoyed class yesterday, and I'm looking forward to today's class.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, without further without wasting our time, let's get to today's class, right? And let's continue from where we stopped yesterday. Um, hold on. Let me get my light on and share my screen. All right. Please, if you have your machine on, you can just open your Microsoft Workbench. I mean, my SQL Workbench, sorry, so that we can get this party started, right? Today we're going to take it
I don't
further
have
from.
my workbench.
What did you say?
I don't have my workbench.
I told you to chat me up yesterday after class. You didn't. Chat me up today after class. So that
My laptop is not here.
All right.
So I'm just there.
okay. You're joining through your phone, right?
Yeah, my phone. I try to want to listen first before I can open it. I don't get time to get distracted.
No problem. That's fine. But if you can, right, for subsequent classes, right, you can usually have both, right?
That's
The
right.
workbench will
That's
run
right.
on your system and your well and the
Yeah, that's what I was gonna do
right.
yesterday. I just figured it out. I was not at home yesterday and I'm not back up like I'm on the road now, so I'm almost home. I can open it once I'm home, but I can working back up.
That's all right. All right. All right. Awesome. 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 So yesterday
Sorry,
we
sir.
started.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes. Yes. I can
Okay.
hear you. Go ahead.
How should we join the class with our phones and then work with the PC? Or can you both work on this on the PC, like both the class and the
Yes. Now
practical?
you can run your can run both from the system, right? Right. And this is
Okay.
what I would encourage. Right. It's good so that you if you can, you know what, just you're not going to be doing too much of practicals, right? Because I don't want you to also lose concentration in trying to get the code right. But I just want you to pay attention to what I'm saying and what I'm doing,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And always have time to do that yourself. But then, if I need you to do something on your system, which I might request, right? I would also want you to respond to that. So, but you also need to learn how to use your system fast, right? I think I should start from there today, right? I I know that a whole lot of us have computers in Africa now, right? Which is a beautiful thing, but we still do not understand how to use these computers, right? Or these personal computers, right? And yes, your personal computer is a uh, multi-user tool, right? Which means that you can, when we say multi-user tool, I'm not saying that multiple human beings, right? I'm saying that multiple application machine, right? You can run tens of applications together on your system, especially if you have a good system that has a good memory or good resources, your memory, your RAM, and a good speed, right? Take, for example, I am having this class on the same system and my machine as well. At least my SQL is also on this system. Do you understand what I'm saying? And if you look at it, my everything that I'm doing is just on one system, right? And that's because I consider my system an extension of me, right? It's like my when you talk to Tony Stark, right? Tony Stark would when he wants to do a superpower thing, he does not have any superhero power. But what does he do? He puts on his nano machine and is awesome, right? Spider-Man has his cloak and or his jersey or whatever you want to call it, and his that thing that helps him throw webs and all that, right? All of these guys have that, and how are they very useful, or how were they able to master this? Because they consider it an extension of them, right? And your computer is what makes you a superhero. The same way your phone, I know that a whole lot of us can actually type on our phones. If you don't know, I'm sure that you've tried it before or you do it, right? You can type on your phone without even looking at your phone. And that's because it has become an extension of it has become a major part of it, right? And that's the same way your computer is supposed to be, right? So I encourage you, there are some shortcuts that makes your system very useful. Let me share my screen so that you can see a few things that I'm talking about, right? Let me share my screen. You can toggle between windows, right? If you are using, can you see my screen, please?
No, your screen is not showing.
Hello? I can't hear you.
We couldn't see before, but I think it's on now.
Okay. All right. So take for example, if you can see my screen, just let me know. Right. Take for example, this is Microsoft Teams. Right. Underneath it, I have Microsoft whiteboard. Somewhere there, I have a slide. Somewhere here, I have a Microsoft Word running. Right. And yes, my SQL is still coming up and all that. Right. And if I want to toggle around or switch between applications, right, all I just need to do. I'm not sure of how to do this on Mac. I'm not a Mac user, right? But for Windows user, you can just press your Alt and your Tab. Press down your Alt, and you can, can you see how my screen is going? I can easily just navigate from one application to the other. So if I want to see this, I see that. If I want to see this, I see that, right? And you can easily just move around, and that gives you an extra power. It makes you look as if you are a superhero, right? And your computer looks like an extension of, right? And from there, you can easily move in and move out of applications, and so it doesn't mean that you have to stay glued to one application of the system or one section of the system, right? So, and there are several of them. You can even use your Windows button to do that. Windows and Tab, right? Hold on, let me see what that will give me again. Right. So look at that. Look at that. Explorer, exceptional, and go together. Sorry, my system is suffering from overwork. Apologies, my system is hanging presently. I don't know why. I think it's because I've sent so many commands into it at once. Right, but just give me a minute. Let me get it sorted. Apologies, my system is embarrassing. All right, so I'm back now. I think we're back. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Back now. All right. Sorry about that. I'm back now. So I was just showing you how to toggle around and enjoy your system. Can you see? Right? How many of us have seen this on your system before, or do you know that your system can do this? Right? And right, you can see that by date, I can go back to all the histories of what I've done on my system in a very long time, right? Going back to August 13, right? I can go back to. So when you're working on something and you lose a frame, you can easily get it back, right? And these are the beautiful things that your system can do that most people do not know, right? And you can even create multiple desktops, right? You have a new desktop that totally does it. Can you hear me, please? Please, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
All right. Right. So it's a function in Windows, right? I'm talking about parallel desktop, right? And I hope you can see my parallel desktop, right? And all you just need to do is press Windows and tap key will give you this, right? And you can have this is one desktop, this is another desktop. Can you see? Totally clean. I can do a whole lot of different stuff from here, right? And have that window here, right? So take for example, let's say that this is the window where I'm working or training people by training window, right? I can create a programming window here where all I just open here is just programming my programming tools, right? And I can create another desktop, right, where I can just be watching movies, right, from here. And all of them run simultaneously. It's like working on three computers at the same time, right? And you can open multiple. Can you see? You can open multiple of them. It's like you have multiple computers at the same time, right? I'm not sure most people know that this is possible. So those are the things that you need to look out for when working with your system, right? You bought that system, it's yours. So use it. Don't worry. If it breaks, as long as it's not an hardware break, like it broke, like this, right? As long as it is still a software issue, right? Don't worry, we will fix it, right? Once you have any software issue, even if it's a Mac, let me know. Find a way around it, right? So don't be scared, right? I know that people are usually scared. This laptop, I bought it at this price. It must not spoil. Don't worry. If as long as it's not broken, like the hardware is not broken, we will find a way around. So please just understand that your system is supposed to be an extension of you, right? So you can do anything on it, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. All right. So today we're going to continue from where we stopped yesterday. Yesterday we started talking about data definition language, right? We started talking about data definition language, and I said that data definition languages are languages that has to do with creating, modifying, and deleting the structure of the database, right? Can you see? So here you have that. Here you have that DDL basically, right? DDL basically are languages that we use to define the structure of the database, right? From the word definition, right? From the word definition, we use them to define the structure of the database. And I told you that in defining the structure of the database, we do three things, right? We create, we modify, and we do what? We delete, right? And if we bring in the old SQL statements that we have in data definition language, I told you that we have create as one of them. We have alter, we have drop, we have rename, we have truncate, and we have comment, right? Now, these are the six. So if I'm going to divide these six into what the component of the define means, right? Create is where you have the create language, right? Under the modify, you have alter, you have rename, you have truncate, or hold on, no, let's put truncate there. Right, so we have rename, we have alter, we have rename, modify, we have comment, right? And for delete, we have what? Drop and what? Truncate. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So basically, this is how they are divided. You can write this down, right? This is profound, just joking, right? But you can write this down so that you understand the way the statement are spread out in the definition language, right? Create, modify, and delete. All of that makes up the definition, or we defining the database using the DDL statement. And I said that the DDL statement are 6 in numbers, and we have been able to create or split them into their different components of what they do, right? Create, modify, and delete. And we have create as create. We have in the modify section, you have alter, rename, and comment. And in the delete section, you have drop and truncate. And we moved on to talk about different database objects yesterday. And we talked about tables, views, synonyms, indexes, and sequence. Hold on, somebody just joined class. And we talked about all of that, right? And I said I was going to explain more today as we proceed. And we also talked about the naming process for database and the data types. And yes, we landed on the create table statement. And yesterday we started creating tables, right? And today we're going to move forward, right? And the move forward that we're going to move forward. Yesterday we started creating statement. I shared a statement with you yesterday. I shared some line of code with you yesterday. How many of us were able to open it, download and open? Right? Please, if you have not, it's on the WhatsApp group. Please try and connect and do as we have said. So today we're going to first of all start with another example of creating a table on the database, right? So that we can get familiar, right? Get familiar with that act. Awesome. So yesterday I taught us about how to create. We also defined a schema and database, right? I'm sure everybody knows how that relates or what they mean now. So yes, we created a database called Friends. And then I said, anytime you want to activate or use a database, you use what you use the name of the database. You run that, you run a statement by selecting it, right? Then yesterday, I said that when you want to create a table, right, as we specified in the slide, right, if you want to create a table, first of all, you need a create table state privilege. Then you need a storage area. Then you specify the name of the table, the column names, the data type, and the column size. And I told us all of that yesterday. All right, so today, I'm going to go and say, so let's look at a proper business case, right? I like to associate these things. I gave you an assignment yesterday. Please and please do the assignment, right? So today is the 12th, right? 12th of, sorry. Today is 12th. So let's just put the date there. 12/09/21, right? Now, so today our business case is that you are a SQL developer for Google. So let's use what should we use? What's the name of that? Friends, for Friends Company, right? Friends Company. The business or the company recently ventured into a new line of business, right? This is an assignment, but I want to start it so that you know, right? The business ventured into a new line of business and ventured into a new line of business or ventured into e-commerce, right? E-commerce. Should I use e-commerce? What should I use? Real estate. Real estate. Ventured into real estate, right? Real estate business. You as the SQL developer is asked, or you are asked, sorry, you are asked as the SQL developer to create tables, create a database for this new venture. Business case. We call it a business case, right? This is what the company wants you to do, right? So the company is Friends Company, and they started a new recently ventured into real estate business. And you are asked as the SQL developer to create a new database for this new venture, right? So they asked you to create a database, right? Now, remind me, this question, we're going to be uncovering this question and dealing with this question as we go, right? But let's assume, right, that we have identified that one of the tables that we want to create, right? One of the tables that we want to create is who can tell me what are the data points that you think a real estate company should have? Please let me know.
Land number.
Yeah.
The land number, like the land, like there's a number to the land, plot 49, plot number. Sorry, I think that's the word.
Okay, plot number. Okay. Okay. Who else wants to try?
I also think a landmark.
Okay. Please go ahead.
The landmark around, like beacon numbers. Beacons are supposed to be defining rules. So every land usually should have a beacon. So become
Okay.
X, become Y, become Z, whatever.
Are you into real estate?
I'm a lawyer. I handle things like
Yeah,
this.
true.
So I have an
You
idea.
are the one, you are the one who does the contract for all of them. Too much money. I can be
No,
your PA. I can be
please.
your PA. All right. So let's take it from a very easy point, right? Thank you for the contribution. So you're going to remind me of this bacon number and the plot number, right? So let's assume,
Yeah.
right, and say that they are to create a property. Properties are what they sell, right? Both lands and whatever it is, right? So they need to create a table that contains all their properties. True or false? True or false?
True.
Right? So and then we've also please let me meet your mic, please. IPK. I think you are listening to me through your system speaker. All right. So are you going to come on? Right? Awesome. It's coming on. Sorry, my system hardly goes down. So I have a whole lot of stuff running. Okay, got it. All right. So properties is the name of the database, right? Or it's the name of the table that we're trying to create. Properties. Sorry, people. Sorry. Hold on. All right. Properties. Right. Is the name of our entity. Right. So these properties must have attributes, right? So take for example, we say property ID. And I'm going to explain why we usually put an ID to everything. Property ID. Don't worry, as we proceed, we'll understand that. Property ID, right? Property name. I don't like this thing. Property ID. Let's go to black. Property name, right? Location ID. Don't worry, I'll explain why again. Location ID. Owner underscore name. Owner underscore phone number. Right? Right? Owner underscore phone number. Just follow me. What else do we have? She talked about plot ID or plot info, plot number, right? So let's call it plot ID. What else does that have? Landmark, right? Surveyor. Somebody spell surveyor for me. Surveyor. Hey, survey. Please, don't mind my spelling. Surveyor underscore ID, right? Let's just stop it at this, right? So let's say that this is all the information that the attributes now, we call them the attributes. So all of these are attributes that the data, that the table would have, right? And yesterday we said that once we know the attributes, we must also know their domain. They are the kind of data that they are going to carry, right? So if we talk about property ID, right, basically we're probably looking at if it's just numbers, right, it will be integers, right? But most of the time, property are not just numbers. So let's just basically just call that varchar. I'll give it a length of 15, right? Property name, of course, varchar. Let's call that 20. Location ID, we can say, okay, location ID can be init, right? Owners, of course, varchar, let's call that 25, owner name. Phone number, right? Phone number, let's call that init, right? Let's use init, right? Call that say thing, right? Plot ID, right? Plot ID can be virtual. Remember, the plot ID is usually allocated by the government, and it has multiple or different types of characters. So we're going to call that 30. Landmark, right? Of course, this is going to be a text that probably describes the landmark area close to the property. So let's call that 40. And then surveyor ID, of course, we can call this what init, maybe a registration number for all the surveyor that that works on the property, right? Now that we have this information, right, what do we do with it? Right, what do we do with it? Now, we create a table with that, right? We create a table with that, and that is what we want to look at. But before we start creating tables with that, right, I want to talk about, and I want to introduce you to what we call constraints today. Please let me know if you are following me. I want to introduce you to what constraint is. Please let me know if you are following me. Remember that we have a table that we're supposed to create, but I want to introduce you to constraints today. So please let me know if you can hear me and if you're following me.
I can hear you, sir.
Awesome. Right. So what is a constraint, right? And how does constraint stops us from creating this table, right? And that's what we want to look at. That's what we want to look at. Right. So it says constraint enforces rules at table level. Don't worry, plain English, but I'm going to explain everything. It says constraint enforces rules at the table level. It says constraint ensures the consistency and integrity of the database, right? And it says that the following constraint types are valid. So we have not null, which specifies that the column cannot contain a null value, right? Unique, which specifies a column or a combination of columns whose value must be unique for all rows in the table. Then we have primary key, which uniquely identifies each row of a table. And we have foreign key, which establishes and enforces a referential integrity between column and a column of the reference table, such that the table in one table, the values in one table matches the values in another table. Don't worry about the plain English. I'm going to explain and break all of that. And then we have the last one, specifies a condition that must be true. So basically, the definition of constraint is that they help us enforce rules, right, on the table, right? So you want to enforce rules on the table. How do you do it? You use what? Constraint, right? So why are we? The question is, why do we need to enforce rules on the table, right? And I'll give you a short story, right? I remember in 2000 and I think in 2009, 2010, I was still in the university at that time, right? And I was consulting at that time for a state government. I'm not going to mention the name of state government, right? Let me just reduce this a little bit. So yeah, I'm going to use that, right? So I was consulting for a state government at that time, and they created a database. Please, I want you to help me judge. Is this a good database, right? So let's assume that this is the table, right? Let's assume this is so they have a table that their data, the data from a website that they are using for one of their public ventures, right? This is kind of data that they have in it. Just follow me and let me know if you think this is good enough to be a database, right? So let's assume that this is serial number, this is first name, this is last name, and then this is let's say date of birth, right? So in the serial number column, they have 01. In the first name column, let's say they have a day. I don't know. A day is usually very easy for me to use, right? In the last name column, they are supposed to have the last name of the person, but they have something like 1983-01-01. And in the date of birth, they have Jane, right? And in the next serial number, they have Chima, right? They have Chima. In the first name column, they have 1992-03-8, right? And here they have let's even call that Lily and Lola, right? Just looking at this, do you think this is good enough as a dictator? At least most of us have worked with Excel in one way or the other. Do you think this is good enough? Do you think this represents a good database or a good table set, right? Do you think this represents a good table? I need responses so that we can move. We have
No, sir. It doesn't represent a good table.
Why? Why? Why do you think?
I feel because you can hardly reference on another spreadsheet if it's Excel. Because once you reference a cell, it's going to give you a different thing other than what you're actually looking for.
Another person.
The data is not structured, it's scatter.
Thank you. That's what I'm looking for, right? The data is not structured, right? Look at it. We said that this is a serial number. If it is a serial number column, it means that every single information in this column must be numbers, right? So why is Chima that is not a number? What is Chima doing here, right? So this is a red flag, right? First name, right? Why is a date in first name? This is also another what? Another red flag, right? Why is there another what's called date in what's called on the last name column, right? That's another red flag. You understand what I'm saying? So that is how the database is, and this is a data, or this is a table that doesn't. This table is said to be inconsistent, right? It's an inconsistent. It's an inconsistent table. No data integrity. Right? There's no, and one of the major things that we have that we need on the database is that our data must have integrity. Please write these things down. Data must have integrity, right? They must be consistent. And they must be accurate. Right? So we call them data integrity, data consistency, and data accuracy, right? These three things are the properties of your database, right? Or your table. Your table must have these properties. The data in it must be consistent. They must have integrity, that is, they must be clean and clear, and they must be accurate. They must carry the right kinds of information, right? And the only reason why you would have this, and truth be told, we have this a lot on plenty Excel tables, right? If I ask you to bring out all your Excel tables on your database or your system, I'll probably find some stuff like this, right? And that the reason, because the only reason why this is allowed is because on that table, there is no constraint, right? There was no constraint on the table that enforces rules. That enforces rules. Now, what does that mean? It means that, like the table we created yesterday, right? Remember that we created a table yesterday, right? That table that we created yesterday does not have integrity constraints. What that means is that I can put anything inside any of these columns, right? Even though, all right, Microsoft, MySQL and database DBMSs make sure that that does not work or that does not happen, right? Because once you specify the data type, right, it's very hard for you to be able to accept those kind of values. But somehow, right, you can still have wrong values inside the wrong columns, right? And that's because there is no constraint. We did not add constraints to this table. Therefore, it is going to be an inconsistent table. There is no way around it. There is no way, unless we add constraint to it. It's going to, when we begin to fill it up with data, when we begin to populate it, right, it would have data inconsistency, right? And how do we enforce those rules? Why we do what? We use constraints to enforce those rules. And here we can see that we have in SQL, or in the old database scenario, we have 5 types of constraints. 5 types, right? And I'm going to begin to explain them one after the other. 5 types of constraint. The first one is a not null constraint, right? I would have said you should say not null constraint if we're in class. Say not null constraint, but don't mind me, right? Right? So I would have said, so the first one is not null constraint. And what does not null mean, right? Remember when we were talking about when we were talking about the anatomy of a table, right? I told you that there are tables that have look at it, a table number 6, right? Look at number 6. A field with no value in it is called a null value field, right? Which means that field allows that there can be empty space or there can be empty cell in that table. Are you following me? Right? There can be empty cell in that table. Now, what does that mean? A not null means that you are saying that this column must contain value. It says specify that the column cannot contain a null value. That is, this column must contain a null value. Now, let's go back to our data here. Awesome. Right? So let's come back to sorry. All right, so let's come back to this so that we can. All right, so let's come back to this, right? So let's begin to add constraints to them, right? So the first constraint we want to add is not null, which means that we want to identify from all these columns, which of these columns must have a value. That is, for every record, right? For every row, there must be a value for in this column, right? And I'll give you an example. Then I want you to solve the rest, right? I'll give you an example. Every property must have an ID, right? Every property must have an ID. And why do we have an ID? It is to identify the property, right? The ID means identification. So every property must have an identification. That is, if a client brings a property to us to sell, right, that property must be assigned an ID such that we can use that ID to trace the information about that data, about that property anytime. So take, for example, somebody brings a house to us in Lekki and says that he wants to sell the house for 85 million, say 5-bedroom, semi-detached duplex and all that, right? And we can say, okay, this property is going to be property 101, right? And so if I say property 101, let me go and check property 101. Everybody knows I'm talking about the property in Lekki, right? So in that case, every property, right, must have an ID. So which means that this column must carry a not null constraint. Are you following? This column must carry a not null constraint, right? Let me give you another example, right? Let me give you another example. I want to break this down so that you understand fully. Let me give you another example. Property name, right? If the property has an ID, then the property must have a name. Is it a duplex? Is it a that's not even the name. Say, let's say that we want to call the name Lekki. Every property must have a name, right? Elegushi land, whatever name you want to give. Every property must have a name, right? Every property must have a name, right? So you have that this, if every property must have a name, then this column is not null. Every property must also have a location, right? It can't be in the atmosphere, it can't be in space, right? So every property, of course, it can be in space. We go to space now. So every property must be in a location, right? In Lekki. So when they say where is the land? The land is in Ibejuleki. Where is the house? The house is on Ikeja GRA. Where is the? There must be a location. It means that that column must contain value. Somebody must be able to, the property must come from somebody. Somebody wants to sell, anybody wants to sell the property. So the property must have a owner, either the company itself, maybe it's the company itself that is selling the property, or an external brought the, do you understand, brought the property in, right? Property, owner underscore phone number. Of course, when you want to sell the house, right? I want to sell the house, we get somebody who wants to buy the house. Must be able to call the owner to do whatever transaction that we need to do. So this must also be what? Not null. Right? Plot ID. Now, plot ID. Every now if it's Lagos State, right? Every property, it is not every property that has a plot ID. Now, there are some lands that have not been allocated plot ID by the government, right? It doesn't mean that they're not going to allocate to them. It can take 20 years to allocate, but there are some people who are built on lands that does not have a plot ID, right? The plot ID probably comes from the government, right? And I'll explain that much later as we proceed, right? So in this situation, it means that as much as it's supposed to be a very compulsory data, right? We can say that it can contain what? It can contain null value. So if it's going to contain null value, I don't need to put anything there, right? So it can contain null value. Landmark. It is not compulsory that we have a landmark for the property, right? It can also contain null value. Then surveyor. Surveyor is not the necessary information. If the house, okay, let's say so the surveyor is necessary, right? Let's say that every land must be surveyed by an expert, right? So we say not what, not null, right? So not null. What does not null mean? Not null means that all these columns that we have added not null to, anytime you are filling the information about an observation, so somebody brought a house, right, to sell, right? We must put on the database, in the table, we must put information in the following columns, right? All these columns that have not null must have information. There must be a property ID. There must be a property name. There must be a location ID. There must be a owner name. There must be an owner phone number. It is not compulsory that the property has a plot ID. It is not compulsory that the plot has or the property has a landmark, but it is compulsory that the surveyor ID is also provided. Please let me know if you understood not null, right? Basically, that is not null, right? Not null. That is not null constraint. And I'll show you how to create a database with not null constraint. Please let me know if you understood that. Waiting. Let's do this really fast. People, I've done 1 hour of class already. I'm waiting, please. Let me know if you understood that.
Yeah, that's good. Yes, we do. I do, rather.
All right. Who else? I need to know who is with me and who is not.
Yeah, I understand it.
You understand it, right? Awesome. Trisha.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Awesome. So I believe everybody understands all that. Hold on, please. Come in. Our data. All right, so let me continue. So now that we understood that, right, let me go to the next one, right? So let's just keep that in our pocket, right? So the next one I want to talk about is unique constraint, right? Unique constraint, right? And let's go back to that example that we have running, right? So not null constraint. Now we want to see which data which column out of all these columns must be unique, right? Which columns out of all these columns must be unique. Hold on, please. Right. Please let me know if you can still see. Let me know if you can still see what I have here. Let me zoom in a little bit. Awesome. Great. Right. So unique constraint. Unique, right? So when we talk about unique constraints, right? Hold on. Let me just explain all of this so that we have space to write a few things. Right. Things of you. Yeah, I got it. Surveyor, right? I got it. Right. So surveyor underscore ID. Right. So we want to talk about unique constraint, right? So from the word unique, when you say something is unique, what does it mean? It means that it cannot be duplicated. Right? That's what it means. It means it cannot be duplicated. It means it cannot be duplicated. That's what it means. Right? So it says unique specifies a column or a combination of columns whose value must be unique for all rows in the table. Right? Whose values must be unique for all rows in the table. So let's go back to that information and look for which of these values are unique, right? So we have property ID, right? So unique is that the value must be unique for each row, for each observation, right? So unique, property ID, property name, location ID, email address, owner's name, owner's phone number, plot ID, landmark, and surveyor ID, right? Now, let me add one more. And there's a reason why I'm adding one more. So let's say that the owner underscore email, right? Now, if you look at it, property ID has to be unique. That is no, location ID is not unique. I for it. Location ID is not unique. There are several properties that can be in the same location, right? Owner's name is not unique. Owner's phone number basically doesn't have to be unique, right? Doesn't have to be unique. One owner can have multiple properties on the system or with the company. Plot ID has to be unique. Landmark does not have to be unique. Surveyor ID has to be unique, and owner's email address has to be unique, right? Now, when we talk about unique, right, I'm supposed to add a unique constraint to all of these guys, right? I'm supposed to add all these ones that we said that they are unique, right? Please listen to me. Please listen to me, right? Unique, we said property ID is unique. Location ID is not unique. Plot ID is unique, right? Unique key. Landmark is not unique. And surveyor ID is what? Unique. Then owner's email address is also what? Is also unique, right? Now, if you look at it, unique, even though these values are unique, right? We cannot add unique to them. And I'll give you and explain why we cannot add unique to them, right? This guy we cannot add unique to because there's a better option that we have. There's a better constraint that we can put on it, right? And we'll get there, right? So basically, in this value, right? Now, unique values are values that are very private to a particular row, right? That are exclusive to a particular row. They help us identify a row, but they are not an. Look at it. They are not a candidate key. Now I'm going to give you an example, right? To understand this, you might not understand this as an experience here. So let's go back to another entity called student. We've been using student for a while now. So let's go back to student. So student must have a matric number. Let's start with matric number. Please just pay attention. Let's start with matric number. Must have first name. Must have last name. Must have an email address. Must have a phone number. Must have say department. Must have a faculty. Right? Let's even stop it at this place, right? So if these are the values, of course we know that this is not, so I'm going to just say NN. Every student must have a matric number, every student must have a first name, every student must have a last name. Every student, is not compulsory that they have an email address, right? But it's compulsory that they have a phone number. It's not no. Every student must have a department and they must belong to a faculty, right? So in this situation, the only data that is not required by everybody is email address, right? But as much as email address is not required by everybody, email address is unique to everybody. So instead of adding an email address, we had a unique constraint, a unique key constraint, right? We had a unique key constraint. And why are we adding a unique key constraint? Two people cannot share an email address, right? Two people cannot share an email address. So a property or an attribute like email address, right? Just follow. A property variable / attributes like email address, right, is not, look at it, it is not a candidate. And why is it not a candidate key? A candidate key is something that is necessary, is important, is unique to a candidate. It's like what we call a primary key, actually. I'll talk about the primary key next, right? It's something that every student must have, and it cannot be duplicated, right? So a candidate key is like your employee ID or your matric number, right? That's your candidate key, right? Which means that for it to be a candidate key, it is compulsory and it has to be unique. That is candidate key, look at it, are compulsory, not null, compulsory to have and unique in nature. Candidate key are compulsory and unique in nature, but email address is not compulsory, right? Email is not compulsory, but it is what? Unique in nature, right? So what do we do? In this kind of data, what we add is what? Is a unique constraint. It is not compulsory, but it is necessary. So what we add is a unique constraint, right? So that is the essence of unique. Unique constraints are not candidate key, right? They are not primary in nature, right? And I will explain what the primary key is now so that you can relate that back. You just do reverse engineering of reverse engineer. You just reverse engineer everything I say or I've said, right? So unique constraints are not compulsory, but they have to be unique. That is, if you have to have them, it has to be unique, right? If you have to have them, it has to be unique. But it is not compulsory to have them. Not everybody has an email address, but if you look at it, everybody has a phone number, right? And phone number, as it were, is not even unique, right? Because one family can share the same phone number. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it is not unique and it is compulsory, right? Of course, it depends on the kind of database that you're running and all of that, right? But we'll get to all of that, right? So in this situation, right, an email address, same situation as what we have up here, right? It is not compulsory that the owner has an email address. But if it's going to have an email address, it has to be unique. I'll say that again. It is not compulsory for an owner to have an email address. But if it's going to have an email address, it has to be unique, right? So in that situation, we add a unique constraint. We add a unique constraint, unique key constraint to that column. So basically, that's what the unique key constraint means, right? Now, the next one we want to talk about also is the primary key. Now, it says primary key uniquely. Now, look at it. So we are using the word unique now, right? Uniquely identifies each row of a table, right? And let us go back to that explanation, right? So I'm going to go back to the student before I go back into properties, right? So for students, right, if you say that a primary key, right, we want to see which is the primary key. You say a primary key uniquely identifies a row, right? It uniquely identifies a row. A primary key uniquely identifies a row. Now, what does that mean? When we say uniquely identifies a row, what it means is that it uniquely identifies an observation. It uniquely identifies an observation. So take, for example, sorry, what kind of matrix did I write? Matrix, not matrix, no matrix, matriculation number. Don't do it. Right? Matric number, right? Now, when you say matric number, right, what it means is that this is the number attached to every student in the university or primary school or secondary school, right? Of course, we use this more in the university. In primary school and secondary school, high school, what you probably have is registration number. In some places, they call it student ID, right? In some places, you call it can be registration ID and all that, right? But what does that mean? What does this kind of data mean, right? Matric number, for example, right? In this situation, it can be an employee's ID if it's an employee's table. If it is a product, right? If it's a product, it can be a product ID, right? If it is the chassis number to a car, right? A chassis number for a car is unique for every car, right? In that situation, it is chassis number because it uniquely identifies a car. BVN, perfect. BVN uniquely identifies each user in the banking database. NIN, right, uniquely identifies each person on the Nigerian database. What's it called? Social security number in foreign countries, right? What does it do? It uniquely identifies each person on their database, right? So any kind of value that uniquely identifies a user What does that mean? It means that that value cannot be replicated, right? It cannot be duplicated. That means that in that situation, what we are going to be adding again is a primary key. So in this situation, primary key is going to be added to a matrix number, right? Because why? No two students can have the same matrix number. No two students can have the same matrix number. In the example up here, what do we have? No two properties must have the same what property ID. No two properties, therefore, we're adding a primary key to that column property ID. Please let me know if you understood what I just explained, right? Please let me know if you understood what I just explained so that we
Sir,
can.
I don't understand the primary key, please.
Okay. Who else does not understand the primary key? I need responses, please. Who else does not understand primary key? Anolu, Paul, Vivian, John, Ebokun, Lola. Who else does not understand primary key?
Sir, there's a little bit of confusion for me between
Unique
primary
and
key and candidate key.
okay.
Because they're both unique identifiers, right?
Yes.
So
No. Unique
how
key.
then do you?
Hold on. Don't worry. I get your question. Don't worry. I get your question. Who else? Who else does not understand? Lola, do you understand? Ibukun, do you understand? John, do you understand?
I mean, I would like another explanation. I mean, I was just going to go.
All right. Let's do this week, right? Going to close all of this. We're going to clean all of this up. Then we're going to start all over again, right? Let's clean these guys out. I'll be done very soon. I'm just trying to clean all of this fast. All right, so let's take it all over again, right? We all understand what unique means, right? I mean, sorry, not null, right? We understand the part of the not null. That is, not null means that there must be a value in the column. Now, we talked about unique key and primary key, right? Unique key and primary key. And I said that these two are familiar. I mean, these two are similar to each other, right? These two are similar to each other, except that a unique key is not compulsory. That is, it can be not null. I mean, it can be null, right? But if you are going to have it, you must have it must be unique in nature, right? Let's understand that. Then we have primary key. We say that primary key is compulsory. Why? Because it uniquely identifies each row, right? And it is also unique in nature, right? Now, let's look at a proper example for it so that we understand, right? Let's create a few databases.
Sir, what of candidates key?
Hold on, please. Um, Awesome. Just trying to set up a few things here. Right. Okay. I'll talk about candidate key as we proceed. Actually, in the real sense of it, right, primary key is usually known as candidate key. Right? Primary key is usually known as candidate key. Wait a minute. Come in. Oh, my video is not even on. Sorry, just give me a minute. Right? So in this situation, primary key, right, primary key is actually candidate key. And when you hear the word candidate, what does it mean? It means that the person is unique, right? The person is unique, is a candidate. Candidate is that you are unique, right? So we have unique key and we have primary key. And primary key, like I said, is a key that is compulsory. That is, and why is it compulsory? Because it uniquely identifies a role and it is unique in nature. What does that mean? It means it is a field, right? It is a field as in a column, right? That uniquely identifies the set of data in that table. And I said I want to give us an example, right? You have it everywhere in every situation, right? You have it in every situation. And I'm going to use the popular ones that we know, right? So every bank now has what we call, so in your bank details, right? Let's say customer, right? Bank customer. Awesome. Bank underscore customer, right? When we are creating a table for bank customer, what do you have? You have the first name, you have the last name, right? But in the ID sense, before now, right? Of course, what you just have is account number. Okay, so you have account number, you have the first name, you have the last name. That's before, I think 2015 or 2014 when the OBVN thing came, right? But since the BVN, then we have what? BVN, right? You have BVN, then you have your email, you have your phone number, you have your address, right? Now, in this situation, right, we just want to concentrate on unique key and primary key. Now, I'm going to ask this question. I want you to answer yourself. I don't want to waste time, right? But I'm going to ask this question and you answer it, right? You answer it, but I'm going to also go ahead and just answer it. Account number, right? Do you think account number is unique and it identifies an account name or do you think it's primary or is a candidate key for an account? Are you following me? Do you think it uniquely identifies the owner of an account?
I'll say it's a candidate key.
Why? Why do you think it's a candidate key?
It doesn't identify. It is unique, but I don't think it identifies the owner of the account in any way.
So
I
what?
don't think like
Okay, continue.
it doesn't really like points like indicates the owner of the account. It does a unique number.
Okay, so you think account number is just a unique number that does not uniquely identifies the owner of the account, right?
Yes.
I think that is wrong. But I want somebody else to answer, right? I want somebody else to answer. Account number. Do you
For
think it's
me,
unique? Yes.
I think that is a unique number because two people cannot share an account number, even as much as I also know that, say, for example, if the last digit of my account number is 2417, it's so bad that there can't be anything even close to 2417. Maybe they can be now be 2217 because, well, that that number is kind of taken. It's so bad that sometimes even if you go to the bank and maybe you've forgotten your account name, I mean, there are people that don't remember and they say, oh, madam, what's your account? That's the first thing. They don't even ask you what's your account name. They ask you, oh, madam or mister, what's your account number? And they just whatever. And immediately they click in your account number. Everything comes up. It's the same thing as saying your BVN. Two of us can never share the same BVN. It just carries. So once I type in my account number, it brings in my name, my number, where I've been, and yada yada yada. That helps me. I do think it's a unique number, and I think it distinguishes me from another person.
Awesome. Right? Now, you're actually right. When you talk about an account number, right? An account number is unique to every customer. And what does that mean? Let me explain what an account number means to you. It's the same thing that you have with your matric number, right? Your lecturer in school probably does not know your name, right? Except if you are popular or you are a very brilliant chap in class and all that, right? So when he's looking for you, what does he look? What does he look for? He's looking for 143715. That was my matric number when I was in school, 143715, right? So when you come to the University of Ibadan and you say that you are looking for 143715, since the inception of the school over 70 years ago, there was and there is not going to be anybody in the past and in the future that is going to be 143715 apart from me. It's the same thing for everybody that who has gone to school. Yeah, your matric number is unique to you. It uniquely identifies you. And what does it mean? It's a pointer to your information. And that's why we call them a primary key. It is a pointer to your information. What does it mean? So take for example, let's say that you won, maybe you went for a competition and you won, or maybe you graduated with the first class, right? And you won several awards and all that. I didn't graduate the first class, right? You'll be shocked when I graduated, right? Right? And the school wants to award you. What do they look for? They look for your matric number. Then with your matric number, they are able to get your name, your full name, your department, your location, your all these scores, all your exam score, all through every of your detail that is on their database. They use that matric number to trace all of those information or to get all of those information. It's the same thing with an account number in the bank. When you're opening an account number, when the bank gives you an account number, it is on the bank's database. Look at it on that bank's database. So let's take for example GTB. I have an account on GTB, 0029946854, right? That number, nobody else can have that number. That number is my account. If you do a transfer to that account, right? Of course, you don't know my name. If I tell you that my account number is 0029946854, you can transfer money to me if you want to dash me for this, right? Now, and I give you that account number, I say GTB Bank, and you just do a transfer to it without you knowing my name. It is going to come into my own account. How did it know? Because that number uniquely identifies my account. And that is why on that column for bank account, we say that it is a primary word key constraint that we add to it. A primary key constraint, and it must be not null, which means that every user must have an account. As long as you want to use GTB account, you want to be a customer with GTB, or you want to be a client to GTB, you must have an account number that uniquely identifies all the transactions, or that uniquely identifies you on their database. So an account number is a primary key, which we also call a candidate key. Now, why did they introduce BVN? BVN is such that the BVN, and I think it's a foolish idea though, right? Maybe because I understand these things better, right? And I think it's a foolish idea. BVN is just a waste of resources. It's just a waste of effort, right? So in a proper environment, I've actually not been to US or UK. I've actually not traveled out of Nigeria before. I hope to do that very soon. But I know that in all of these countries, right, what you need is that once you enter into the country and you're going to whatever visa you're coming in with, either a citizen or you're a foreigner or whatever, they give you a social security number, right? They give you a social security number, right? And that social security number uniquely identifies you on this country's database. What does that mean? It means that if you want to get a job, the company or the recruitment company would ask for your social security number. That's the only thing they need about you. Once they get your social security number, they know you. They know where you are. They know all the houses that you have stayed in. They know all the transactions that you have done. Because why? It is a pointer to several databases, right? So they have, this is it. They have a social security number database, right? SSN database. And if we say 01, now this 01 points to medical database, points to bank database, points to police database, points to employment, points to real estate, points to even the transaction that you did in at ports, right? Every single thing that you do, right, is required or has that social security number attached to it. Why? Because it's the value that it is the number that uniquely identifies you. And this is it. Are you following me? This is it. Once you die, right? If a person dies, right? I'm talking about the country now. If a person dies, that number is not assigned to somebody else. Are you following me? They won't say, this person has died, so let's assign his number to somebody else. No, that number uniquely identifies that person forever. Such that if that person performed a crime before he died, and 10 years or 100 years later, they want to prosecute that crime, it is that number that they use to get that person's information to punish him. If they transfer that social security number to somebody else and they want to punish the crime, who are they going to punish? The new person who is carrying the social security number. Meanwhile, it's not the one who committed the crime. I hope you're following me. So, but in Nigeria, we're supposed to, so we have that number, it's called NIN, right? On the country's database, right? So I don't know if everybody has it now, but I know that a whole lot of, I have mine, right? NIN, right? NIN is National Identification Number. That number is supposed to point to every database such that we would not need BVN. And what does that mean? It means that, and this is what BVN is. BVN is used to tie together all the different bank accounts that you have. That's basically the essence of BVN. Yes, it is unique. No two people can have the same BVN, but it is a foolish idea, and it tells us how much of derogatory thinking that we have in this country, right? And I'm going to explain it so that you understand what we're trying to say here. And let me just clean this up, right? So let's assume, so this is the function of BVN, right? I have an account with GTB. I have an account with Access. I think I have 3 accounts with Access. Diamond and Access put together. I have an account with Stanbic. I have an account. I used to have an account. I'm not even sure anymore. I have an account with Fidelity Bank. I have an account with Heritage Bank. Right. I have an account with Sterling Bank. Right. What other bank do I have an account with? Zenith Bank. Yes. Right. So only me. Right. Of course, because of jobs and all that, you open accounts for. So that's why I have this principle. Don't judge me. Right. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right. What does that mean? I have 9 different account numbers tied to my name. 9 different account numbers tied to my name. Now, what does that mean? Before now, I can use this one for fraud, right? If I was a fraudster, I'll use this one to perform fraud. I use this one for my salary. I use this one for, you know, the way Nigerians do that thing, right? And it was difficult to be able to merge or put an identity to several of these different accounts. Of course, they know that this person owns this account. But if you come to me and say, Akintibolu Ajon, you performed a fraud on your GTB account, and I say, who told you that? I didn't, right? How do you know? All of that, begin to ask questions. It's difficult for them to win cases in court, right? And what did they do? They created the BVN, right? And the function of BVN is that it is a number that ties all these account numbers together, right? So that's why they ask you to come and register. Or even though you have created all these accounts before the idea of BVN came, they ask you to come and put your BVN on your GTB, put your BVN on your Access, put your BVN on Stanbic, put your BVN on Fidelity Bank, put your BVN on Heritage Bank, put your BVN on Sterling, put your BVN on Zenith Bank. And what does that mean? It means that that number now ties all your accounts together such that if you do any transaction on any of these accounts, right, we don't need to look far. That number has tied all the accounts together. So we can say that you are the one who did the transaction. Do you understand what I'm saying? So imagine that my corporate account is on Sterling. So I have in fact on Sterling I have like 3 account numbers, right? Then my corporate account is also on what? On Sterling. That's about 11 accounts. So for the corporate account, take for example, does not carry my name. It probably carries the name of the company, right? Now, if I use the company to perform fraud, because my BVN is what is attached to it, who would they catch? It is me now. That's the essence of BVN. But this is what it is, right? In a sane country, what we are supposed to put here is not BVN. What you're supposed to have here is your NIN. What that means is that if you perform that number uniquely identifies you as a Nigerian. If you need a medical, your medical history is tied to your NIN. Your 13 bank accounts, right, is tied to your NIN. Your school NIN, your employment NIN, everything, such that anything that anybody does in the country, we are looking for this person. This is what you have done. Oh, it's easy to know. What is the person's NIN? Apparently, there are probably about 100,000 or 1,000,000 people bearing Oluwaseun in the country, right? If they say they are looking for Seun, I can rest assured sit down in my house and know that it is not me. But if they come and say Akintibo Oluwaseun, right, I can be scared because I know that we are very few, if not only me in this country, that bears that name because my surname is not popular, right? So I can be scared, right? Okay, maybe there's another Akintibo Oluwaseun somewhere that I don't know about, right? But I know that it's going to be a few number. But still, it does not narrow down to me. But if they come and they say, we are looking for this person with the NIN 013377, whatever it is, right? They don't need to go further. It is unique. Are you following me? It is unique and means that it is only one person who can have that word. Who can have that word, who has that NIN. Therefore, they don't have to go further. They just need to use that NIN to trace where is the person staying, what is his account number, this and this, and they get all the information that they need from you. Do you see the difference now? So NIN and BVN, of course, they are unique values, right? But they are primary key in nature. They are unique and they are compulsory. They are what? Unique and what? And compulsory. Now, the difference between a unique key and a primary key is, like I said, a unique key is not compulsory. But if you are going to have it, you have to be unique. A primary key is not, a unique key is not compulsory. But if you are going to have it, you have to what? It has to be unique. A primary key is compulsory and it has to be unique in nature. That's basically it, right? So that is why if you look at it, and that's why we do not have enough data, or we don't have our data put together in the country, right? And that is why you go to this hospital, you would have to open a medical record or a medical file with them. You go to that hospital, you have a medical file with them. You can have your medical files in different hospitals, and if possible, you can even put different names. But you cannot have that. You don't have that in developed countries. Once you are going to the hospital, what they need is not your name. They're probably not going to ask you of your name, right? What they're going to ask you is, sorry, you want to open a card or whatever they do with us. What is your social security number? Once they impute your social security number into their database, what does it do? It generates all your information, including your medical history. So which means that the country has one single database that has all the medical history of its citizens. Not that you have one in what's it called, Charlton Hospital. You have another one in, and that is why some people in this country, some people have been sacked, some people have done fraud in several organizations. But because our database is not put together, they go into another organization and still go and defraud them, or go and behave anyhow in that company, and you are unable to trace them. It's because they don't have records, right? You cannot go to America now, or UK, or Canada, or these developed countries, and you mess up in a bank, right? And you think you're going to get a job in another bank. The bank that you messed up where you performed fraud is just going to update their database and say that this person was let go or was sacked because he performed a fraud, right? Any agency that wants to give you a job the next time would have to look at that record. Once they pull up your your social security number, they would see that, God, Baba, you just committed fraud in that bank some months ago. We cannot give you a job. And that is why when you look at it, when you watch all those movies, like I said, I've not been there before, but when you watch all those movies, once you go to prison, it becomes, once you, if you like, go to prison for one day, as long as it is on your record, it is very hard for you to get the job. What it means is that the best bet that you have in surviving is to be an entrepreneur. Start your own business and be doing your own business. And even in doing business, the government will still put a strain on you. Because why? In your record, you will have a dent of going to prison, of ever been to prison as an inmate on your record. Anywhere in the country, if you like, move from Ohio to Connecticut, move from Connecticut to Manhattan. In fact, from anywhere, once they put your social security number, it gives them the full information about who you are. And that's why we call it the primary key. So any entity, every entity, and this is why it is important, right? And this is what I want you to listen to. Every entity that you are creating on a database that is going to contain information that is unique to observations must have a primary key column. Usually the first column on your table, listen, the first column on your table, I'm going to repeat that again. The first column on your table should be your primary key column. Note, MB, right? The first, okay, before we even say that, right, let me write this so that you can jot it down. Every entity must have a primary key column. This column must be the first column on your table. Don't mind my address. Right? Now, you might not find this rule anywhere, but I am creating that rule. You must have. You know why? It is the column that uniquely identifies each row. So if you go to your school database, right, and they are looking for, and you see the way they created the student table, you will discover that the first column is the matric number column. And let me give you an evidence of it, right? Let me give you an evidence of it, right? When you fill a form, in, of course, in organizations that understands data, right? In organizations that understand data, if I'm going to create a form, right, that I'm going to collect people's data, right? A form, maybe a paper form or anything, right? The first thing that you want to ask for, go and look at forms from foreign organizations. I mean, foreign organizations. You're looking for a job and all that, right? The first thing that they will ask you is your social security number. After your social security number, they say your name, your first name, your last name, your email address, your phone number, blah, 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 blah. They list all of these things. Why do you think they are creating the first column to be your social security number? Is so that they know that you can lie in this data, in the remaining name, first name, blah, blah, blah. You can, if you like, lie. Once they get your social security number and they input it, what happens? It automatically generates the data for them. And that's why it is easier for them to catch crimes and all of that, because they have all the data. They have your blood sample, they have your DNA, they have all of those things. So when they say DNA, whose DNA is this? And they use it to search for, the first thing that they see is your social security number. That gives them more information about your data. That gives them more data about your information, or gives them more data about you. And that is how unique key works and how primary key works. Please let me know if you understood what I just explained. If you understood it better now, please let me know. Do we understand it better?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting to hear from other people. Do we understand it better now?
No, sir, I don't understand that. Just join the class. So.
Eh? Hey, we can't go back. Oh, please come here early.
Sir, when did you start this night? Is it exactly 2 o'clock?
We started 3 o'clock.
Okay.
It will not be nice for us to go back again. Don't worry, I'll explain to you personally later, and you can also see it in the videos. All right, I need responses from people. So that I know if you understand. If you just let us do we understand the concept? Please let me know, because that concept is very, very important, right? It's very, 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 very important. So let me know if you understood that concept that I explained, please. Let me know if you understood that concept. Lola, Vivian, and Oluwapo, Trisha, Evokun. Let me know if you understood that concept so that we can move on. Right? We spent about an hour, almost an hour on those constraints.
I do.
Eh?
I do.
You do, awesome. Evokun, Vivian.
I understand.
I do understand, but I have a question.
Okay. What's your question?
Okay. Is it a question or from the table you created, let's say the bank table, you
Okay.
said which is the unique key and which is the primary key. You know, you say unique key is not compulsory, like it cannot be, as it can be null, right? Why the other ones are why
not
the primary key, candidate key, yes, must not null, it must have information regarding it. So in this table, which is the unique key?
all right. So in this
That
situation
means,
now,
sorry,
right?
excuse me, sorry,
Yes.
sir. So that means the account number, BVN, NIN, they're all primary keys, candidate key.
Yeah, they are all primary keys, right? They are all primary keys, right? They are all primary keys on the table.
Then the email address is the unique one, because it mustn't necessarily be there, but once it's even there, it's still giving a different information about everybody. Like no one person has the same email address, right?
Exactly. So what it means is, now this is what it means, right? If we know now to search for people on the database, right? So like Lola said, if you go to the bank and you say you can't remember you're trying to get your account balance or something. What the first question they ask you is, they give you a paper and say put your account number, right? And that's because it's unique to you, right? So if you don't know your account number, right, they will say put your BVN, right? If you don't know your BVN, they say do you have your NIN, right? All of this data, all of these information about you are unique to you. So it's easier for us to use it to search you out. We don't need to search the whole database because it's unique to you. It makes, don't worry, when we begin to talk about indexes, you understand, it makes it easier for us to search for you, right? Right. And what it means is that if you don't know any of this, that's why if you look at it, whenever you are trying to whenever you maybe you have a Facebook account or you're trying to open an account on a service online, maybe Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. What they request from you when you forget your password is that they say, do you have an email address? Why? Because on their database, email address is not null and it's unique. That is, every user must have an email address and it is unique. Why is it unique? Why are they collecting the email address? So that whenever you forget your password and they need to get you a way to get a new password, they know that you are the only one who has and who owns this password. This email. So they send that information to your email. Now, in that situation, those services, right, require that email address is not null and it is unique. But for universities or for banks and all of that, right, they might not need to have your email, right? But that doesn't mean that if you have it, you have to give it to them. and it has to be unique. So maybe you and I you walk into a bank now and want to open an account, and you don't have an email address, and I have an email address, right? Usually, although our banks too can be very funny, they can use two email addresses for us, and it boils down to the way their database is configured, right? But usually, they are not supposed to collect and use your email address, my email address for you, because email address has to be unique to individuals. What does that mean? It means that if I want to do fraud, if they use your email address, if they use my email address for you, right? What it means is that every correspondence that they are sending to me, right? They are sending to you comes to me. Every information that they send to you comes to me. That is, all your bank details comes to me. What that means? What that means is that it opens vulnerability, a window for vulnerability, such that I can hack your account. That little mistake has cost a whole lot of people their life savings, just because they shared an email address that is they used an email address that is not theirs on their information. All the information, when you see Yahoo boys, that is what they do basically. Find a way to change your email address, their own email address to your own email address, such that all the informations that you get, they get the same. And it is very, very delicate. You don't do that, because it means that you are taking the information that does not belong to you. So if you go so that's why it is unique, right? It is not a candidate key, but it is unique. It is unique in the sense that we can use it to search the person out, but it is not compulsory to have. That's why it is not a candidate key. But BVN, account number, NIN is a candidate key. That is a primary key. It is unique to you. It is unique to you. Any other question before I move forward? Right? Hi, this class, man. All right. Please let me know if you understand. Right. The next thing I want to explain is the foreign key. Now, foreign key establishes and enforces a referential integrity between the column and the column of a the reference table, such that the value in one table matches the value in another table, right? So don't worry, this is interesting, right? This is really interesting, and you will understand it. Trust me, I will do everything to make you understand it, right? Let's go back to our explanation sheet. All right, so we want to talk about foreign keys, right? So what is a foreign key, right? And in my experience as a data analyst, as a database administrator and an SQL developer, right? Students and users usually have big problem understanding what a foreign key is, right? There's usually what am I writing? There's usually a big challenge understanding foreign key, but don't worry. I am gonna break it down to you such that you understand, right? Now, what is a foreign key? That's the question, right? So when you hear the word foreign, it means that there's some kind of traveling, there's some kind of being in a place that you are not supposed to be, or being in a place that you have permission to be, right? But not being in a place where you are not a citizen. Yeah, that's the word. Being in a place where you are not a citizen. being in a place where you're not a citizen is what we call foreign. So when you go from Nigeria to America, you're a foreigner. You go from Nigeria to Canada, you're a foreigner until when you get your what do you get then? You get your citizenship, right? When you get your citizenship, then you become a member of that country. You become a member of that country, right? That is the same thing that happens on the database when we talk about foreign key, right? Now, what is a foreign key? A foreign key is a reference, establishes and enforces referential integrity. From the word referential, you have reference, right? That is, we are doing a reference, we are doing referencing. Referential integrity. Why is the word integrity there? I'm going to explain. Referential integrity between the column and the column of the reference table, such that the values in one table matches the values in another table, right? You know, don't worry. I'm going to make you understand this. Right? So a foreign key, hold on. So don't worry about the definition. The understanding is what matters. So we just explained what a primary key is, right? A primary key is this. So I'm going to draw the employee table, right? This is employee table, right? This table contains information about employees, right? So we have employees table, right? On the employees table, you have emp_id, right? Which is a primary key. So I've added primary key to that. First name, last name, email address, which is unique key, phone number, right? Some organizations actually make their phone number what's unique, right? Phone number, salary, commission underscore PCT, that's commission percentage, and let's say department underscore ID. Are you following? This is the employees table, right? That's an entity. Now, if you look at it, then we have another table, right? We have a table called department table, right? Department table. And on the department table, what you have is department underscore ID. You have department underscore name, right? You have the location ID of the department. Then you have, let's say, what do we have again? What do we have again? Let's say that the manager underscore, don't let us complicate it. Don't let me complicate it. So we have locations. Then, okay, let's say we have a region underscore ID. Are you following? Please, I want you to listen attentively to this part. So we have employees ID. Let me write that employees ID so that you understand it well, right? So we have employee ID as the first column here. Employee underscore ID. Now, the employee ID is the value that uniquely identifies each employee. Then you have the first name, you have the last name, you have the email address, which is unique, you have phone number, which is unique, you have salary, and you have commission percentage. But look at this information. Let me change my marker. Here, we have what we call the department ID. Now, if you look at it, so let's assume that the department ID is a number, right? So the department ID. So when you have information and you say this person, so let's create a kind of data, right? An example data for this data. So employee ID, let's say employee ID of this person is 100. His first name is Ade. His last name is Jane or James, right? Email address is ade.james, right? Phone number is 0801133, whatever. Salary is $7,000. Commission percentage is it gets 0.15% of that's his commission. And the department ID is 10. Department ID is 10. So the question is, what is 10 as a department ID? What is what? 10. What does 10 mean as a department ID? Now, let's go back to this. So here, department ID is a primary key. This is another table, right? A different table. So let's generate, this one. Now, I'm going to leave these two. I'm going to talk about them later, right? So let's generate a sample information, right? So on this table, right? On this table, we have department ID 10 to be IT department, right? IT department is in locations 1700 is in region region ID. Let's call the region ID 23, right? Now, what does this mean, right? Remember, this is a primary key here. This is a primary key here. But look at it. You see this primary key, this department ID. Some way, somehow, it has found itself on the employees table. Are you following me? Some way, somehow, it has what? Found itself on the employees table, which means that it is part of the data of an employee in the employees table. Right? Now, I'm going to go back to that definition so that you see what that means, right? If we go back to that definition that we have, it says that it establishes and enforces referential integrity. Referential integrity means that we have the employees table. Hold on, please. All right, my marker is not working on this. So I don't know. Right? It says now it says establishes and enforces a referential integrity between a column and a column of a reference table. Get out. Apologies, please. Let me hanging again. Don't know why. All right, I'll continue. It says establishes and enforces a referential integrity. Right? Establishes and enforces a referential integrity between the column and a column of the what? The reference table, which means that when you have employees data, right, and when you have department data being seen on an employees table, like the example that we have, there is a reference. So, all right. Now, it says when you have, so you have a column that is what? It says, so foreign key is actually a referential integrity object. Referential integrity. So the reference, there are two different words, and I'm going to explain. Referential means that this column that belongs to the department table is being referenced on the employees table. And the question is, why is it referenced on the employees table? What it means is that the department ID column that is a primary key on this department ID table, on the department table, is a foreigner, that therefore a foreign key on this table. And what does that mean? It means that it is referencing the information from the department table on the employees table. And the integrity part is that the information on the department table, on the department's ID of the department's table, must be the same must be the same as the department ID column on the employees table. Now, what does that mean? It means that the employees dot, we call them, we refer to them with the dot keyword, right? Employees dot employees dot department underscore ID is the same as is equals to as department dot department ID. Now, let me break it down to you so that you understand it in normal terms before we go back to technical terms, right? I'm going to do that now. Now, what does that mean? Right? You have Nigeria and you have an America, right? If a citizen of America, let's call him Jerry, comes to Nigeria, what is he? He's a foreigner in Nigeria. Are you following me? He's a foreigner in Nigeria. Now, what does that mean? It means that even though he's in Nigeria, right, he's representing what? America in Nigeria, even though he's not a government official, right? He's what? He's representing. That's why he's a foreigner, right? What that means is that if you slap him, or you kidnap him, or you kill him, or whatever you do to him, you are not doing it to an individual. You are doing it to America. Of course, that's for countries that have good visas and government that has good passport, right? It's not like Nigeria, right? Sorry that I'm putting this on record, right? An American in any country is a foreigner. A Nigerian in any country is a foreigner, right? But I like to use the American example. Jerry in Nigeria is a foreigner. What that means is that he is representing his country. Are you following me? And that's the same thing that happens when you have a department ID like this in a table where it does not belong. This is where this column belongs, but this is where you find it, right? Because why? It gives you a pointer. And what is the pointer? This is it. It is a referential integrity. And what is a referential integrity? Like I said, a referential integrity tells us more. It's a pointer. It tells us more about that information. What it is, if I say generate, so if the business case is generate all the information concerning employees 100. Can you see? I did not say a day. I said generate all information concerning employees 100. Right? Where do I look? I will look at where is this information. His information is stored in the employees table. So I say employee 100. His name is Ade. His surname is James. Right? His email address is ade.james@gmail. His phone number is 0801113 blah blah blah. His salary is 7,000. His commission percentage is 0.15. Right? Then I say he's in department 10. Right? But what does that mean? Department 10 now points me to the department's table. Department 10 does what? Points me to the department's table where I am able to see more information, right? And what does that mean? I say, okay, it's in department 10. Whose department name, which department name is IT department, that is in the IT department. His location is 77,000 and his region is 23. Are you following me? This 10 helps us to understand that the 10 actually means that is in department 7. I mean, department is an IT, is in the IT department, right? And is in what? Region 1,700 and what? I mean, is in location 1,700 and what? Region what? Region ID 23. Now, what does it mean? What does this location and region mean? It means that there is another table involved called the locations table, right? And on the locations table, we have what we call the location underscore ID, right? That is, every location must be unique, right? Every location is a primary key column. Location underscore name, right? Region underscore ID, right? Now, there's another word table called regions table, where you have region as the ID. You have the region underscore what? Name, right? Yeah, this one is primary what? Primary key. Now, what does that mean? Right? Let's look at everything. Oh, this is too small. Right? Let's look at everything in context now. Let's look at everything in context. Right? Now, so if we say that locations ID, right? Let's generate a little data for that. Locations ID 1700 is let's call that San Francisco, right? San Francisco.
Zip code.
What is it?
It shares zip code.
Don't worry, don't let us complicate it yet. Don't let us complicate it yet. Let's just follow this example, right? So we say location ID is 1700 and region ID is 23, right? Then we come to the regions table. Let's generate a little bit of data for that person. Region ID is 23, and that region is the person is in US. What does that mean? So I'm going to come here, I'm going to clean this off a little bit, and I'm going to say that this person, remember that we said that is in department ID 10, which department name is at IT department, and it is in locations 1700 and referencing, right? Reference. So here, location is a foreign key here, right? Region is also a foreign key here. Can you see? Here, region is a foreign key as well, right? So if we reference this now, what does that mean? We say that 1700. Where can we get more info about 1700? Then we look at where is it coming from? Locations. Then we come to locations table. We say, oh, 1700 is San Francisco. So it's in San Francisco, right? It's in San Francisco. And it's in region what? Region 23. Where do we get more information about region 23? We come to regions table to come and see 23. 23 is what? US. So what does that mean? It means that to get the full information of employees 100, we have to what? We have to look at information from how many tables? 4 different tables. Table 1 is employees table. Table 2 is department table. Table 3 is locations table, and table 4 is regions table, right? And why did that happen? That is because we use what? Referential integrity to link all these tables together. Why is this possible? Why is this possible? That's the question you should ask. And why is this possible and why is this necessary? Remember that I said that yesterday when I was giving you the assignment, I said when you are creating your database, right? When you're creating your database, it must contain related data. And why do we have related data? It means that there must be relationship between the entities. This is one entity. This is entity employees. This is entity department, right? This is entity employees. This is entity department. There's what we call relationship between them. Because why? They are related. So what you have is when you see anything that is in a diamond or diamond shape like this, right? In ER diagram, it is called relationship. This is an entity. This is an entity. Oh, don't let me do it that way so that we don't get confused, right? Just going to put them underneath. Employees, right? This is an entity. This is an entity, right? Of course, you know that they have their attributes that we have used to create the table. They have their attributes. But in between them, because they are related, they have a relationship. So this is a relationship. And what is the relationship? It means that you have to be able to break it down and say that what it means is that every employee must belong. That is, the relationship to them between them is belong, actually. Every employee must belong to a department in the company. Sorry. Every employee must belong to a department in the company. Can you see the way these things are formed, right? I hope you are following me. Are you seeing the way these things are formed, right? So every employee must belong to a department in the company. Now, if you have to expand it, how do we expand it? Sorry. Let me increase this. All right, so let's do it this way. So we have employees with a relationship with departments, right? So we say that employee is an entity. Every employee must belong. That is the relationship between them. Entity, right? So we have relationship between means belong, right? Now, if you look at it, we'll go back to that information that we have, that table that we have, right? You'll discover that, hold on. You discover that there is a relationship between department table and location table. And there's a relationship between what? Between department and region table. There's even a relationship between department and location table. And there's a relationship between what? Department and region table. There is a relationship between the location table and the region table. So how do we draw that out, right? How do we explain that now? So we go down to say that every employee must what? Let me enlarge this a little bit. Every employee must belong to a department, right? Every department must belong must belong in a location, right? Every department must be in what? A location, right? This is department, this is relationship, this is entity. So the relationship here is belong or must have a location, right? Don't let me use belong, let's change it. Belong have, right? Let's say every employee must have a department. Every department must have a location. Every location, therefore, must have, this is region, must be in a region. Are you following me? Every what? This is relationship, this is entity. Therefore, every employee must be in a department. Every department must be in a location. Every location must be in a region. So which means that department is referenced on employee through a foreign key, right? Region is referenced on department through a foreign key, right? Region is also referenced on, location is referenced on department through a foreign key. Region is referenced on department through a foreign key, right? And region is referenced on locations through a foreign key. You see what you have here is what we call an ER diagram. An entity relationship diagram. If you are able to do this perfectly, you are an advanced SQL user. But you're an expert. That's what it means. Because your job is to be able to use this information that you are generating, relate them with each other such that you can get a full information from the database like we just did here. Now, what do we have? We're able to get and say that employees 100, who is Ade, right? Whose surname is James, whose email address is ADJA, with phone number this, has a phone number of 08113, and he earns a salary of 7,000. He has commission percentage of 0.15, belongs in department 10, which is the IT department, right? And is in locations 1,700, which is in San Francisco. Are you following me? And which is in US. Now, let me remove the ambiguity in this information and just remove 10 and this one, right? Let's now say that what we have is that is in, so we have employees 100, who is Ade, whose surname is James, who is in department, whose email address is this, whose phone number is this, who receives a salary of 10,000, 7,000, whose commission percentage is this, who is an IT department, because we got to the IT department through the fact that IT department is 10, right? And is in San Francisco, which is, we got by what? By saying that the San Francisco is the location, what, 1,700, and is in, that is, it works from, sorry, it works from USA, right? San Francisco is in USA, so it works from US, which is region 23. Please let me know if you understood all of that. Please let me know. I've used all of my energy to explain that. Please let me know if you understood what I just explained. Please,
Yes,
I need responses. Eh?
I understand, sir. I have a question.
Hold on. Before you ask a question, let's hear from other people. Do we understand? Do we understand? Please let me know if you understood. Lola, Lola, Anita, Vivian, Trisha, Ebukun, Anu, and John. Please let me know if you understood. Vivian says she understood, but she has a question. So please let me know if you understood that. Please let me know. I am waiting. Don't be lost, right? This foundation is very, very essential. This foundation is very, very essential. I don't mind using the whole day to explain constraint, because once we get constraint, everything else is easy. Everything else is easy. Everything else is easy. Once we get constraint, constraint is one of the major things that gives database administrators or SQL developers, SQL users challenge, right? You can bet it. Go around, talk to the people that you know that understand SQL. That I'm not the one who taught them, right? That they didn't learn from me, right? Go around and ask them and say, please come and explain constraint to me, right? Come and explain constraint to me. Come and explain what is the role of unique key, what's the role of primary key, and all of that. You discover that yes, they will be able to explain, maybe explain primary key, explain unique key, explain not null. But when it comes to foreign key, right? Hey, that's where the problem usually starts, right? Wala be like bicycle in that situation, because most people do not even understand that concept, right? Most people do not understand that concept, and that's why they run from it. So please let me know. I do not mind to explain these all over again so that we can get it. Please let me know. I need responses now.
I to an extent, but I'll go over it again for myself. But I mean, I get the class, but I would rather go over it again. So if I don't understand again, then
All right.
that's a
Of course. Understanding it is, you have to go over it again, right? You have to go over it again. Thank you, Lola. Thank you. Who else?
So I will have to watch the video again. Serious. Or I'm trying to understand a little bit.
Well, you get the idea of it, right?
Yes, I get the idea of the whole drawing and all that. I'll have to watch it again. Yeah.
All right. Madam Anita, talk to me.
Well, sir, I'm still trying to understand it because I don't know the foreign key. You said you got for you to get that particular detail, you have to go through four tables, and I don't really know how you manage to go through four tables and to get that particular detail. I thought it's just one table you go through, but you have to go through four tables to get that.
Yes, you have to go
To
through
get
what?
just to get a particular detail of
Yes,
somebody.
yes. And we do that through what we call joining, right? You have done SQL before. I'm sure that you see that's one of the challenges, right? You have done SQL before, right? We do that through what we call joining, right? Right. When we get to select statement, We'll talk about joining, right? And this that we just explained, right, is the concept of joining. Are you following me?
Okay.
This that we explained.
Okay.
That's why I said that you must understand it. Because if you do not understand it, there is no way you can understand. See, these things, that's why I did not go to, that's why I did not start from DML, right? That's why I want to start from where the technicality is, so that once you understand the technicality, you're able to breeze through the rest, right? Once you understand this concept, the concept of the ER diagram, right? What you have is that you're able to join. What we do here is that we are generating information from 4 tables.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying? We are generating information from what? From 4 different tables. 4 different tables.
Sorry, sir. The 4 tables,
Yes.
do they already exist or something?
Yes, it means that the tables must exist already. For you to be able to query the database, the tables must already exist, right? Now, if the table has not existed before, or they are not in existence, they've not been created, it means that while you are creating your table, which is why we are going to go back to creating. Of course, you remember we are creating tables, right? When we are creating tables, we have to be able to specify the relationship between the tables. When you are creating the employees table and the departments table, you want to specify the relationship between them. Do you understand? Once you understand the relationship,
Yes.
when you specify the relationship between them, it makes it easy. Let me show you something. Let me show you something. Let me show you something. I want to show you a proper ER diagram, right? I want to show you this thing that I just explained to you. I want to show you now. I want to show you now. Okay, so I have a database here. So I'm gonna go to. All right. Where are you? All right. So I have HR database, right? And inside the HR database, so that you understand what I'm saying, everything that I'm talking about is inside the HR database. Can you see? You have departments, you have employees, you have locations, and you have region. Can you see? I'm going to send the code to you so that you can also have that database, because we're going to use it a lot. Employees database, departments database, locations database, and region database, right? Now, when you have this, right, I want to show you the ER diagram of this database. Of course, by looking at it, these are just tables on the database. So this database has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tables. 7 tables, right? I want to show you the ER diagram of this database. So I'm just going to click on database. I'm going to reverse engineer the database. Yes, so you see, it's asking me for all the information, all the connect parameters. I say, okay, I will pass to that. So it's connecting me to the database. Connecting me to the database. I will explain what I'm doing, right? Just hold on. Right. So next, using this guy, so select the schema you want to include, right? So just HR schema, fetching the object, retrieving objects from selected schema. It is done, result check. All right, so it's telling me that this object has 7 tables, 7 plenty story, right? Let's execute, 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 right? And it is placing the object. What it is doing is it is drawing my ER diagram for me, right? It is drawing my ER diagram for me. And it is able to do that because it understands the relationship that already exists. When I was creating that database, I had put the relationships there on them, right? Using the primary key and foreign key referential integrity constraint. So finish, and this is it, right? Please let me know if you can see my screen. Let me reduce this a little bit. Hold on. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Okay, perfect. 85. Let's do 80. Please, I want to show you. All right, look at it. right? Of course, there are several kinds of relationship, right? You can always read that up, right? Look at this table. Look at this employees table. Please let me know if you can see what I'm saying. Please let me know. I need you to participate now.
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah.
Yes.
I see your screen.
Awesome, awesome. Now look at it. What I did is this is what we call an ER diagram. Right? If you have not seen an ER diagram before, this is what an ER diagram. Can you see? Enterprise relationship diagram. Can you see? Can you see here? Can you see where my cursor is? Enterprise relationship diagram. Right? This is what we call an ER diagram. Now, what does this mean? This is, remember that I told you that you generate an entity and you all its attributes. Location here is now an entity. Look at all these attributes. Region is an entity. Look at its attributes. Employees is an entity. Look at the attributes. Country is an entity. Look at the attributes. Job is an entity. Look at the attributes. Department is an entity. Look at the attributes. Job history is an entity. Look at it. Attributes, right? So I have all these tables. Now you see all these lines, right? All these lines. And you see that if I select the line, right, you will see that the line becomes highlighted, right? And if you look at it, let me zoom in a little bit so that you can see. Now, look at this. Can you see that there's a key-like logo here on the locations ID? Can you see this is the data type, int, right? When you see a key-like logo, that logo or that icon is that this location ID is a primary key. Here, can you see region is carrying that same logo? It's a primary key. Country ID, primary key. Employee ID, can you see? Primary key. Job ID, can you see? Primary key. Job ID is, job ID is a primary key here as well. Employee ID is a primary key. What else? Right, this table is the only table that does not have a primary key. And here, it is what it has is a foreign key, right? Because you have employee ID, right? Now, I'm going to zoom out and begin to show you stuff, right? Now, let's look at this. Let's look at the employees table. Look at the employees table, right? You see that from the employees table, when I select this, look at it. When I select this line, can you see this line? What does it do? This line selects what? The department ID. Look at it. Can you see? That line connects 4 tables together. 4 good tables together. 4 good tables. The employees table going to the country ID table. No, sorry. Sorry, there's a mistake there. Right? It connects just 3 tables together, right? That line was on this object was on this line, right? So you need to understand how to read it. So I have to take it off, right? So look at it. This employee, this line, this is the relationship line, right? Connects to the department. Oh, great. Can you see? Actually wanting to? Yeah, awesome. Right now, this line connects to just 2 tables. Yes, the employees, the department's column is referenced on the employees table. Let me zoom in so you can see. Look at it. Look at the line again. Right? This line, can you see? Can you see that on that line, on the department's table, department ID is selected. On the employees table, the department ID is also selected, which means that the department ID from the department's table is referenced on the employees table. Look at the second line. Right? Now, on this second line, if you look at it, what did you see? You have the employee ID selected, but in the department table, it is now a manager ID. Now, that is when you say that you have transformed a column from a table to another table as a foreign key, but the name is not the same, right? I'm not going to explain that. We're going to talk about that later. I don't want to complicate things, right? So I'm going to leave that. Then we have job. Can you see? Job ID. When I selected this line, can you see where it went to? The job table. the job table ID is selected and the job ID is also what's selected. What that means is that the employees table alone is getting information from or is pointing to data on the employees table. There are two columns that are pointing to a larger table. The department ID has a bigger table. The job ID has its own table, and the department ID has its own table. Now, so many things to explain. Let me go back to this and show you something that I did not talk about before, right? Even the first set, I did not teach them this, so don't tell them, right? Please don't be confused. I know that this can be very confusing, but please don't be confused. Just ask me questions when you are confused. Now, remember that the employees table, right, is I've told you that the employees table is an entity, right, that has all of those things, right? But I want to specify, so it has employee ID, first name, last name, then he has job, and that is every employee must have a job, and every employee must have a department. Now, I remember telling you that when you are creating an attribute, right? When you are creating the attribute for an entity, right, you need to specify all the attributes that you can think of, all the attributes that are possible. Now, in creating these attributes, right, I discovered that job has more information in it than just being a job. Listen to that again. Job, the employee has a job, right? So when you say job, and I think about it, job, as much as it's an attribute of an employee, has so much data inside of it. As department, every employee must have a department. As department is an attribute of an employee, it has so much what? It has so much information on it. What does that mean? It means that if I bring out job on its own can be an entity. We call, when you see this, right, two square like this, we call it a sub-entity. That is, this entity was based on this entity, right? Because job now has job ID. It has what is that job? What are the attributes of that job? Let's go back to this. Job ID, job title, minimum salary, maximum salary. Awesome. So job ID, job underscore title, minimum salary, maximum salary. Right? So which means that this job that is an attribute of an employee can even stand alone as an entity. But as an entity is dependent on its existence is dependent on the existence of the employees. Therefore, right? Therefore, it is a sub-entity. But forget the idea of sub-entity, right? I do not like to preach the idea of sub-entity because I feel that every entity are enough data point on their own. So I'm not going to call it a sub-entity, right? That's what you find in some literatures. So I'm just going to call it job, right? So job is an entity that has its own attribute. Therefore, the attribute primary key here from job is referenced here as what? Job underscore ID. Here it becomes a foreign key. That way, this table, this entity is linked to this table. There's a relationship to them. Every employee must have a job ID, must have a job ID, or every employee must have a job title. How do you know the job title of the employee? Look at his job. How do you know the job title? How do you know his salary? How do you know his salary scale? Look at the job ID and reference that job ID to the job table itself. The same thing that you have with the department table. The department on its own, at its own, is an attribute on its own that has department ID, the department name, locations ID, and region ID. Now, because he has this, therefore, department ID that is an attribute is now referenced on the employees table as department ID. What does this department ID mean? It means that we are saying that let us put a summary of this table on this table. That is what the foreign key means. Let us put a summary, a pointer for each of these tables on the employee's table, right? We need the full information of the employee. All of these IDs now point to a different table where we get information from. So which means that if we want the full information, we cannot get the full information alone from the employees table. We have to reference and look for the additional information that were referenced on the employees table. I hope we understand it, right? I hope we understand it. Right? So this is an ER diagram. Yes.
So just a quick one. So does it mean that it's only primary keys that are being referenced as foreign keys in other tables?
Yes, you can only reference primary keys. A primary key of a table that you find in another table is a foreign key. And we only generate relationship through primary keys and foreign keys.
Okay, sir.
Any other question? Any other question? Please, I know that you might not be able to get this concept all together in this class, right? And that is why I encourage that. I've downloaded, I have the video for yesterday already. I'm going to upload it on YouTube. I'm going to upload this video as well on YouTube. I want you to take time during the week to look at them and ask me questions, right? Take it or leave it from me. When you understand this concept, these ones that I'm explaining, it changes the game for you, right? The reason why I can be proud of myself as a DBA, as a data scientist, as a data analyst, as an SQL expert is because of this concept. And this concept, if you can wrap your mind around it and understand it, it changes the game. It takes you to the next level, right? Takes you to the next level. Awesome. So that is constraints, right? And let's look at the last one is called check constraint, right? Check constraint specifies a condition that must be met, right? Or that must be true. Check constraints are constraints that must be true. And take, for example, what does that mean? When you say you have a check constraint, when you say you have a check constraint, right? Let me wrap all of this up. Check constraints are to make sure that they work with conditions. They work with a particular condition, and that the condition must be true, right? So let's go back to the employees table. Let's say that employees is a table, right? And so every employee has employee ID. We've established that this is a foreign key. They have first name, right? Which is not null. Every employee must have a name. They have last name, which is not null. They have phone number, which is not null. They have email, which is unique key, right? They have job ID, which is a foreign key. They have department ID, which is also a foreign key from somewhere. Then they have what we call salary, right? And we can put a check constraint on this salary, a check constraint. So what exactly is a check constraint, right? A check constraint ensures that a specific condition that is attached to this column must be met, right? And let's say that I want to put a check constraint. I'll say that the check constraint is that salary must be greater than 0. Salary must be greater than 0. What does that mean? It means that in the organization, the policy of the organization, or let me use better organization, right? Let's say that salary must be greater than $1,000, right? Now, the policy of the organization is that the salary of everybody in that organization, either cleaner or driver or CEO or whatever post you hold, your salary must be greater than 1,000. What does that mean? It means that when we are inserting somebody's record and we insert a value that is less than 1,000 for the salary, what happens? It will not allow that insert to happen. It will give us an error. That's basically what it means. It will stop that operation from happening. Because why? This condition has to be true for the information of the person to be stored on the database. I hope you're following me, right? So let me give you a practical example where I saw this happen, right? I remember that, of course, when Donald Trump was president of America, right? When Donald Trump was president of America, I don't know, I'm not sure. I think it's true though, right? They said that his salary was $1. Of course, Donald Trump is a billionaire, right? And he feels that he doesn't need to get anything from the country. He already has tons of money that at his disposal. So he said that the salary was put to $1, right? I'm sure that what actually happened was that he said, no, I do not want to, no salary. I do not want to receive salary. But then they told him that, see, on the database of employees in the country, as long as you're an employee in America, your salary must be greater than 0. So what that means is that when they wanted to update his information to, of course, before he wasn't getting salary, he was probably getting commission from his company, paying himself millions of dollars and all of that, right? Now that he is president of the country, right, he has to, of course, remove his name from his organization as earning from the organization, even though the organization will probably still continue to pay him. But he wants to start earning from the government. And the government is saying that if you are going to be on the payroll of the government, if you are going to be on the payroll of the government, your salary must be greater than $0. So that you will not come tomorrow and say that I worked free for the company. I worked free for the government. I want to sue the government for not paying me. No, you would be able to say that no, you agreed to the fact that you don't want to collect salary, and even at that, we said that your salary must be at least $1. That is check constraint. That is the essence of check constraint, right? If not, they will not be able to allow you into the database. Let me give you another example, right? Let's assume that you work for ShopRite. Let's assume that we have a ShopRite database, and we have sales details table, right? Sales details table, right? That's sales details table, right? And we have sales underscore person underscore ID, right? Salesperson ID, right? Primary key, of course. Right? Or don't let us use ShopRite. Let's use what should we use? What product do we? Let's use all these people that used to sell Longton lamps, all these marketers on the road, right? Longton company, right? Salesperson underscore ID is this salesperson's person underscore name, first name, salesperson underscore last name, sales underscore sales, let me call it SP now, right? So you understand what I'm saying, just an application. SP underscore email, SP underscore phone number, right? Now, SP underscore daily underscore sales is a column. I mean, it's a column. Yes, it's a column, right? Salesperson daily sales, right? Your daily sales. Now, on this one, we can put a check constraint. And what does this check constraint do? It means that we're saying that what your sales as a sales rep for the company must be greater than 0. Don't come back any day and say you did not sell anything. You know that there are organizations that have policies like that. Don't come back and say you did not sell anything. If you like, buy it yourself. You must at least make one sale every day. At least one sales every day. And that's what that means in interpretation. your daily sales must be greater than 0. So when you are inserting your daily record and you put 0, what happens? It's going to give you an error. It's going to give you an error because it will tell you that what? There is a condition that has to be met for the data to be inserted. And that condition is that sales SP underscore daily underscore sales must be greater than what? Must be greater than 0. Now, we have gone through all the different constraints, right? We have gone through all the different constraints. Starting from primary key, we went to foreign key, went to unique key, went to not null, and went to check constraint, right? So basically, we know that primary key uniquely identifies data. Foreign key performs what? Referential the foreign key table. The primary key table is supplying the foreign key table its data, right? Unique key, that is the value must be unique, but not compulsory. Not null means that yes.
Okay. So does it mean that the foreign key is referencing on the primary key
Does it mean that
to
what?
get its data? I don't know how to put it. Like the
Does
foreign
it mean that the foreign key depends on the primary key to get its data?
yes, like it's
Yes. It depends on what you have. It depends on. So what it means is that if you insert a value on a foreign key, that value must be allowed inside the primary key. If you insert a value inside the primary key, that value must be allowed on the foreign part, on the foreign key table. They have to be the same. That's why, if you remember, I said that using the example that we have above, I said employees dot department ID, right, must be equal to department dot department ID. What you are saying is that this is the originating column. Everything in this annotation means that department ID of the department table is equal to the department ID on the employee table. Department ID on the department table is equal to the department ID on the employee table. The other way around, the department ID on the employee table must have the same data as the department ID on the department table, right? So which means that if I insert a value into this department ID, that value must be accepted here. If I insert a value here, it must also be able to reflect here, right? So which means that if I do not have a department ID called 50, right, I cannot put anybody in department 50. Are you following me? Which means that if department 50 is going to be sales, right, I want to create a department called sales. That sales department, which is department 50, I must create it first on the department table. Then that is when I'll be able to put people into that department on the employee table.
okay.
Don't worry, when we begin to create all these things, right, you would understand them better. Don't worry. You understand them better.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. So we have unique, I mean, not means that what? The row must what? Must contain data. And checks a condition. Condition must be true or met or true for the data to come in. Right? Basically, that is all that we have for constraint. That's all that we have for constraint. I want to give us, this is 5:52. I want to give us 8 minutes to rest our brain, and I'm not leaving, I'm online. You can just walk around, get something to drink. Let me also get something to drink and move my legs around. And we converge back for 6, and we do our last lap, 6 to 7:38, right? Do we agree? I need confirmation from everyone. Do we agree?
Why are we stopping by 8, please?
Ma?
Why are we stopping by 8? You said 6 to 8.
Yes, I said we're moving. Once we rest now, we continue from 6 to 8. You don't want us
Sir,
to
please
stop
let
by
it be 6 to 7, no? 6 to 7.
Doing 8. I'm sorry, I'm not. We have work tomorrow.
Hello, sir, we have work. We have to go and prepare. 6
All
to
right.
7.
From that,
It's okay.
we have other work, especially.
That's all right.
I'm speaking for
6
myself. I think everybody.
Me, I'm
7, not
speaking for
7:30.
myself. 7 o'clock is
Exactly.
okay by me.
7
All
is
right.
fine.
7 is fine,
Mm.
Abby.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir, it's fine.
All right. 7 is fine.
Yes,
7 is fine. So we can rest. You see, we have used another 1 minute to talk. So 7 minutes break, everybody. Then we come back for our last lap, 6 to 7. Right? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please come back on 6 on dot. Oh, please come back 6 on the dot. Hello, everyone. Are we there? Let me know if you're there. Let's go through this
Hello, sir,
final.
I'm here.
Awesome. Welcome. Welcome. I hope today's class is not too technical. I hope we're not scared of SQL already.
That's what we signed up for.
Don't worry, it's not too technical. It's not technical like that, right? I'm waiting to hear from others. I'm waiting to hear from others.
Awesome, yeah.
John, I hope this training is meeting your expectation.
Yes.
So can you see the difference between what you know before and what is obtainable?
Yes.
So remember that we had that discussion, and was as if I was trying to make you do it by force, right? Because I know what is obtainable, and I know what can happen, right?
Yes.
I'm glad you're enjoying it, right? I'm glad you're enjoying it. So you can give Daddy you can give him your feedback, right? So that you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand it, yes, sir.
Awesome. People are running away already. I have just 5 people here. Madam Anita, I hope it's not too hard, right? See that I know you have done SQL before, right? But you see that there's difference to these things. Right. So some people are not back yet, even though we can see them. We can see them physical in class. They are not in class. They are not. All right. So final last. All right. So we've created constraints now. Constraint guidelines, right? Constraint guidelines. It says you can name a constraint on the server. So I'm continuing from where we stopped. It says you can name a constraint or the server. You can name a constraint or the server will generate a name for it. That is, when you're creating a constraint, when you're adding a constraint to a table, you can either give your constraint a name by yourself, or the server, that is your system, will give it a system generated name. That is, it will generate a name for it, right? I usually advise that you name your constraint by yourself, such that when you're looking for it to work with it, you can easily identify it. Because when the system generates a name for it, it is lost in a lot of information, and you have to begin to query to know what object it is. So it is advisable that you give every object that you create on the database, you give it a name by yourself. It says it is best that you give your constraint a name, right? It says create a constraint at either the following times, right? So how do we create constraints, right? How do we create? That's what we're trying to look at. It says either at the Are we there? right? You can create your constraint while you are what? Creating the table. That is, immediately while you are creating the table, as you are creating the table, you create the constraint. We call it at table level. At table level. Then it says after the creation of the table. That is, after you have created the table, you can now add constraint to it, right? So there are two ways to creating a constraint. You can create it at either the table level or a column. It says define a constraint at the column level or the table level, right? And I'm going to show you how, right, and what those means, right? Creating a table at a constraint at either a table level or a column level. Now, constraint creation, look at it. It says column level syntax. How do you create a constraint while at column level? That is, you are creating the constraint while column level means that you are creating the constraint while you are creating constraints while you are creating the table, right? That's what we call that's where these two falls. Where is it? These two falls to when creating the constraint, creating the constraint when creating the table. That is, you can create the constraint inside, that's what it means, inside a create table statement. When you are running a create table statement, you can create your constraint inside it. But in how, there are two ways to do that. You can either do that while using the create table, you can create the constraint at column level or table level. Right? Now, what does that mean? Let me show you. Right? Don't worry. You see these things, you will know it. When you are creating the constraint, when you are creating the table, look at this example. Create table, table name, the column name, the data type, the constraint. Right? That is column level. That is after you name a column. After a column is named, the constraint is specified. Right? And that's column level. Then at table level, this is after all the columns have been named. We name or we specify, that's what I'm looking for, sorry. We specify after, right? After you created the columns, then you now create the constraints. That is at table level. Let's see examples of what those two means, right? Now, we want to take for example, the first one, primary key. How do we create a primary key constraint? How do we create a primary key constraint? Right? It says a primary constraint is a column or set of columns. That is, can you see? You can have a primary key on a column or a set of columns, right? That is, you can have multiple primary key on your table. That's what it means. You can have multiple primary key on a single table. So you have a primary key is a column or set of columns that uniquely identifies each row in a table. Uniquely identifies each row in a table. It says the following rules. The primary key follows these rules. It says a primary key. I've explained all of this, so I'm just going to read it. A primary key must contain unique values. It says if the primary key consists of multiple columns, the combination of the values in these columns must be unique. That is, the primary key must contain a unique value. Now, if you now have multiple primary keys on a single table, when you combine all these primary keys together, their value must be unique. Are you following me? What does this mean? Let me show you, right? Of course, you say that every table must have a primary key, right, that uniquely identifies the row. So take, for example, our primary key is 1, 2, 3, right? But in scenario where we now have multiple tables having primary keys, I mean one table having multiple primary keys. So we have, let's say that, yes, employee number is primary key. So this is a primary key column, right? Let's assume that we now even made email address primary key column, right? So AJ MB What happened? Sorry, my slide crashed. Oh, Lord. Don't worry. I want to finish early so that we can rest, right? And prepare for work tomorrow, right? Um, so we're going to finish early. I just want to explain a few things, then we close. I'll give you an assignment, then we close. I'll give you an assignment, then we close. I'll show you how to do them, then we close. That is what we're going to do today, right? So we're almost done. We're almost done. We are almost done.
Can I ask a quick question?
Please go ahead.
What's the difference between the SQL we're using and my PHP?
Okay, so SQL is the same thing. PHP is a programming language, right? But PHP usually come with MySQL, right? It comes with this exact variant of SQL that we're using, right? Or this DBMS that we're using. And that is because PHP is a programming language that we use to develop websites or web applications, right? And because it's going to be working on data, right, it needs a database that it can use, that it can connect to. So that is why they call it PHP MySQL. But PHP is a programming language that is used to create web applications, and the database part of it that stores the data that web application is going to store is in MySQL. So, and I've said it before, I've told you in class before, that SQL is the same across all platforms, and there are several SQL distributors. We have Oracle, we have MySQL, we have IBM DB2, we have Microsoft Access, we have Microsoft SQL Server, we have MongoDB, we have Cassandra. There's a whole lot of them, PostgreSQL and all of that, right? PostgreSQL. So there's a whole lot of them, and it's the same language across board. It's the same, even SQLite, right? If you go to UK and you do your masters, you probably use SQLite, right? It is same across board. It's same across board. So same language with all platforms, right?
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. All right. So all right. So this is where we are. Slideshow. All right. Yeah. So primary key. So I was saying that. So when you have situation that, of course, you know that every table must have a primary key column, right? But we're saying that if you have a situation where you have multiple tables, multiple primary key columns on a single table, like let's say that this is employee ID and this is primary key, right? And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's assume that we made email a primary key column as well, and you have AJ, BZ, blah blah blah, MQ, and so on. And you have maybe you have another. What do we add now? That is phone number. Let's assume that phone number is a primary key as well, right? And you have 080 to 001, 08003, and all of that, right? What it means is that if you combine the three of them, remember that if you combine this now, what you have is 1 AJ0802. If you combine this one and what you have is 2BJ081. If you combine this one, what you have is 3MQ0803. Their result have to be unique. Are you following me? Their result has to be unique. That is what we're saying. So anytime you have either a single primary key column or multiple primary columns, they have to be unique, right? And it says they have to be unique, right? They have to be unique. And it says a primary key column cannot have null values. That is, you cannot say that a primary key column is a primary key column and it allows that there are empty values inside of it. No, it is compulsory that you have that column is filled when you are filling the information. It is compulsory that the column is filled. It says any attempt to insert or update a null value to a primary key column will result in an error. Note that MySQL implicitly adds a not null constraint to primary key. So which means that when I'm creating a primary key, when I add a primary key to a column, what comes with it? By default, not null is added to it. Can you see? When I'm creating a column, say employee ID or student ID, and I'm making it primary key, right? Because primary key cannot be null, what happens? Once you create and say that this the constraint I'm adding to this column is primary key, automatically not null is also added to that column, right? Such that it can enforce consistency, right? It says a table can have only. Now this is an error. Can have no, this is an error, right? A table can have more than one. I wanted to write something else here, right? So you can have multiple primary keys on a column, right? On a table, right? It says the primary key column often has auto increment attribute that automatically generates a sequential integrity. A sequential integer whenever you insert a new row into a table. So when you create a primary key, right, and you use auto increment, what happens is that it automatically generates a sequential integer. That is, it can be increasing for itself. So which means that if I'm saying the primary key column is 0, 0, the first value is 0, 0, 1, and when I'm specifying, I say auto increment. What it means is that primary key column, I don't need to put values there by myself anymore. When I want to insert the next value, it automatically generates the next value. If I want to insert for the third value, it automatically generates the next value by itself because it has auto increment. Now, look at this example here. Can you see? It says create table users, then bracket user underscore ID integer. That's the data type. Auto increment primary key. So if I put 10, right? If I put 10, the next value will probably be 11. The next value will be 12. So it will auto increment by itself. I hope you are following me. Now it says, look at the example of primary key table, primary key in table creation. It says column level, create table, user, right? Look at what we are doing is we're creating a table, user. What we want to create is add a primary key, right? At the column level, create table, users. Then the first column in that user is our entity, and this is the first attribute. User underscore ID, right? Integer, right? Then auto increment, then primary key. Then then you put a comma. Then the next column is username. You have voucher 40, then comma, password voucher 255, comma, then email address voucher 255, right? This would create this table. At the table level, remember I said that at column level, you name the constraint after you have specified, you specify the constraint after you have named the column. At the table level, you specify the constraint after you've named all the columns. Now look at this situation. Table level, it says create table, rows, then open bracket, roll underscore ID, integer, auto increment, comma. Now you see that we did not put the constraint, right? Then we say roll underscore name, voucher 2, 50, comma. Now look at it. We're now saying primary key into bracket roll underscore ID. That is, we are adding a primary key to this roll underscore ID. We did not specify it afterwards because we want now the way the system does these things. There's a way the server interprets these things, and let me teach you. Let me show you that. Now, in this situation, right? This is how the server interprets this. So it creates the schema. It creates the table, right? So it draws the table. This is how the server interprets it. It draws the table, names the table user, right? Now, what it does is that you are saying that, okay, create the first user ID. So it creates the first user ID, and it says auto increment. It adds auto increment into it. Then it says primary key. Then it creates a constraint, primary key, and it adds it to this column. Are you following me? Now, that is at column level. But at table level, what it does is that you are saying create all the columns first before adding the constraint. So it says, okay, the first column is what? Is row ID. So it creates that. The second column is what? Row underscore name. It creates that. Then it now goes to this and say, okay, on the row ID, what happens? Let me add a primary key. So it adds a primary key to it, right? In this situation, it creates the column and immediately adds what? The primary key. In this situation, it creates all the columns. So if you have 1,000 columns, it will create all the columns, then begin to add the constraint after it has created all the columns. Are you following me? Right? Are you following me? So that is how it does that. That is how it does that. So let's look at it, right? So foreign key is the next one, of course. So talk about it. It says a foreign key that to a column or a group of columns in another table, basically, right? It's a foreign key places constraints on data in related tables, which allows my reference. Look at this example that we have here. The customer number is reflecting on the customer order what table. In this table, it is the primary key here. It is a primary key here, right? But on this table here, it is a foreign key. And what does it mean? If you want to generate information and you come to customer and say, okay, somebody ordered, made an order. The order number is this. The date the person ordered is this. The required date is this. The shipping date is this. The status is this. The comment is this. The customer number is this. Also, who is now that customer? Can we get more information about that customer? Oh, yes, the customer. This table has been joined to this table. So we now want to trace this customer number on this table to know that, oh, the customer's name is Lola. Our surname is this. This is our last name. This is our first name. This is our phone number. This is our address, and blah 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 blah, and so on. That is how foreign key relates with each other, right? How do we add a foreign key, right? We also do that using what? Column level and table level. At column level and at table level, right? It says at column level, create table employees. So you have employee ID in it, and the length is 6. Then we say this dot 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 means that there are several other columns that has been created. Then we have department underscore ID. And we are saying that on the department ID, what happens? It is an integer, the length is 4. The constraint, so we are naming constraints. Constraints. Now, this is constraint. We are naming the constraints. We're using the keyword constraint to specify that we're naming a constraint. And this emp underscore department ID underscore FK is the name. This is the name of the constraint. If you look at this place, right, there is, of course, this is correct. But in this situation, we did not give a name to the constraint. In this situation, we did not give a name to this constraint. In these two situations, right, the system, we did not specify a name. So the system is going to create a system generated name for this constraint, right? Because we did not give a name. That is not a good idea, right? But in this place, look at it, we specified the name of the constraint. And anytime you see anything that has underscore like this, right, they are easy to interpret, so don't be scared. It means, what that means is that this constraint is, the name of the constraint is emp underscore department ID underscore foreign key. What you are saying is that there is a department ID being a foreign key on the employees table. I'll take that again. We are referencing the department ID as a foreign key on the employees table. The department ID is coming from the department's table, but it's a foreigner on the employees table. That's what it means, right? And we say what? References what? We have to lead, we have to point to where it is leading. It says reference department's table, department ID. I'll take that again. Look at it. Constraint. So we are saying, we're specifying constraint. What is that? Please let me meet you. Right? It says constraint. Hello? Right, awesome. It says constraint, right? Employee underscore depth ID underscore primary key. I've explained that, right? So if you have something like department underscore emp ID underscore foreign key, what does that mean? It means that you're saying that the employee ID is a foreigner on the department table, basically, right? So in this situation, the department ID is a foreign key on the employees table. That's what we're saying, right? And we are saying that, okay, what table is it referencing? So we said reference. It is referencing the data in the department table. But which column? It is referencing the data on the department ID column on the department table. That's basically what you're saying. That is at column level. You see that we named the column and we named the constraint. At table level, all the columns have been named. Then we now begin to name the constraint afterwards. Look at this. This is the first constraint we are naming. This is the second constraint we are naming. Constraint m_depth_foreign key, the same name as you have here, right? Foreign key. Can you see? Foreign key constraint on department ID. What is it referencing? References department ID, department ID. Constraint m_email_unique key. That is, we are putting an unique constraint on the employees table's email address. Which column? Unique. Which type of constraint? Unique. On which column? Email address. Right? So the column usually comes in bracket. The column would come in bracket. The column will come in bracket. Right? What is the time now? I think I should stop this slide here. Let's go into practicals and I'll show you a few things before we close the class. Awesome.
Yes, I have a quick question. What is the point of naming the constraints? Are they reusable, or what is the point of naming them?
Okay, so the point of naming a constraint is that the reason why we name a constraint is when you want to disable a constraint, you can disable a constraint, right? If you don't know the name of the constraint, it will be difficult for you to know the constraint to disable. That's one. When you don't know the name of the constraint, if you want to drop or delete a constraint from a table, right? That is, you don't want the constraint anymore, right? It will be difficult for you to know the constraint that you want to drop. So every database object, right, has to be named so that when you want to manipulate them, when you want to work with them, when you want to do whatever you do, it's easier for you to locate them. Are you following me? That's the essence. That's the essence. When you add a constraint, I will talk about that maybe much later. When you add a constraint, there's a way that you see this constraint that we are creating at table level, right? They are joining the table. You see those constraints, they are very, very hard they are easy to remove, but they are not very easy to remove because they are knitted with the table. When you create a table already and you now want to add a constraint to it afterwards, right? There are two different objects that you are stacking upon on each other. We'll talk about that when we get to alter table. Don't let me jump ahead of ourselves, or don't let us jump ahead of ourselves. But know that it is very essential that you name your objects so that when you want to edit them, when you want to alter them, when you want to drop them, when you want to rename them, when you want to do whatever with them, it's easier for you to locate. Are you following? Right. So I wanted to show you a few things, right? Let's create a table. Let's create all right, so we've been talking about which one did we create the last time? Okay, student. So let's say use what database are we using? Let's use what's our database name again? Friends. All right, so let's say use Friends. Right, remember we created this Friends database yesterday. All right, so we're using Friends. Let's just collapse that. So if I run this now, it's going to run and it's going to activate that all right, so we are inside Friends already now, right? So we want to create a let's say we want to create a customer database, right? Or let's say, what do we want to create now? Okay, let's create a student database, right? So that it's easier for us to relate to. So we say create table. So before I create table, let me just say create student table, sorry, not a database. Right, so we say create table. Just watch me, right? You will do this by yourself later. Can you see? Every keyword is always in blue, right? Every keyword is always in blue. So the name of the table is student, right? Then what do? We open a bracket, right? in that bracket, I'm going to say that the first thing we're doing is we say matric underscore number, right? Matric number is, let's call it integer in nature, right? Let's auto increment it. Why are you not blowing it up? Blow this guy up.
So why are you putting the auto increments?
Yeah, because I want it to generate values for itself by itself. Right? But don't worry. I think it's not, I want it to blow it up, but it's not doing that for me. Suppose it's a keyword, auto increment. Am I spelling the increment well? Yes. All right. It's not answering me for auto increments.
So I can't see your screen again.
You can't see my screen? Hello?
I can't see your screen again.
Logged out and log in again, please. My screen is up. Can everybody see my screen? IBK says you can.
Yes, sir.
Can anybody?
I can see your
Yes,
screen.
yes, I can.
IBK, you have to, okay, good. Screen that already. All right, so integer, right? Integer 7. So I say primary key. And you see primary key, and I say I can call it, the name of the constraint will be student underscore ID underscore PK. That's the name of the constraint. So I say column. Who can tell me this kind of naming of the constraint? Is it column level or table level?
It's column level.
Awesome. Awesome. You get it. That's column level, right? So we are naming the next variable. First name here we use varchar. Say call that varchar 30, right? And we say not no. Can you see? Not no. Last underscore name, same thing, varchar 30, not no, right? Email address, email, varchar 50, right? Unique constraint, right? And we say, let's call it student underscore email underscore UK, right? That's the name of the constraint. Then phone number, right? So we say phone number is let's call that integer, and it's not null. Okay, let's just say department underscore ID. Hold on, please. What is that? Department underscore ID. Say integer, right? We say now this one is a foreign key, right? This is a foreign key. So we say integer, then we say constraint, right? And we say that it is a foreign key constraint. Right? On whose name is, hold on. I hope I'm not missing anything. Hold on. Constraint, yeah, foreign key, blah, blah, blah. Give it a name. What's the name? Depth. We can call it student underscore department ID underscore FK, right? And what does it do? It references what table, right? So we say it references department table. Which column does it reference? It references the department underscore ID column. Department underscore ID column of the department table, right? What's the last thing I want to add? Say faculty underscore ID. Every student must have a faculty, right? So we say integer as well. We constraint it. Say constraint, and we say student underscore FAC underscore ID underscore FK, right? What does it reference? It reference faculty, right? Faculty underscore ID, right? So now we are done.
But can you add check constraint?
I should add check constraint, Abby. Give me a column that you think we can add check constraint for students. Give me a column. Okay. School. Hold on. What is it?
Maybe grade or CGPA or score, something like that.
CGPA. Okay, awesome. CGPA, right? CGPA is int, right? And we say we are adding check, right? And we say the check is that CGPA is greater than 0. The CGPA is not greater than 0. So we don't expect that, right? CGPA is greater than 0, right? So, so we are done. So if I run this now, what do? I select all of it. Sorry, let me just go up a little bit. I select all of this and I execute this. What happened? Give me an error. Somewhere there's an error. Let's check. Hold on, trying to check what's up. Magic number, integer, primary key. Hold on. I think I know why. Just give me a minute. Let me cut this guy. Hold on. Constraint. Let's remove all of this constraint from these guys. They don't exist already, so they don't exist yet. All right, so let's do this. What else again? Hold up, please. Let me check something. So what is making it not run? I need to know. Matrix number integers primary key. Hold on. What exactly is happening? People help me look at it. What's happening? I can't find something wrong somewhere. Not now. Integer, not now. Integer, not now. Now it is running. It is running now. It's taking a feed. Yes, it has created. Although it's giving us a warning, right? I think. Hold on. Let me undo what I just did now. Unique key. Oh, okay. No, it's fine. It's all right. Why didn't it now run? Right, but it was the complaint was that this unique was what was causing not to run. But if you look at it, it has run. How do I know if it has created? Right? I have told you. You come back here. You reload this. Can you see? Can you see the student table here? Can you see the student table here? Now, two things happened, right? Please follow me. Two things happened. I added these guys, department ID and faculty ID were supposed to be a foreign key, but there is no table that we can reference, so it will not work, right? Department table does not exist, faculty table does not exist, so we can't reference them. So we can create the column and add the constraint later. Are you following me? That's one. Two, the email address, the email, right? The constraint, I don't know why the constraint was messing up. Let me look at it again. Hold on. I don't know why the constraint was messing up, but it gave us an error in that constraint, right? But look at it. This is how here we were able to add a primary key, and I'm going to show you. Here we're able to add a primary key. We're able to add a not null constraint, a not null constraint, a not null constraint, and a check constraint, right? Now, how do I know? Of course, I said you reload this, and you can see that our student table has been created, right? That's one. Two, yesterday I told you that if you describe the table now, students, right? What do you have? If you describe the table, you should have a corresponding to give you the structure of the table. The structure of the table. Now look at it. Can you see the structure? This is what we created. This is our students table, right? Matrix number, integer. Now, can you see key? Under key, you have primary. Can you see? Under key, you have primary. Then you see not null is no. That is, it must contain a value, right? First name, voucher 30, not null is no. Last name, voucher 30, not null is no. Email address, voucher 30, email address can contain null value. Can you see? Yes. Phone number, init, not null. Department ID can contain can contain null value. Faculty ID can contain null value. CGPA can contain null value, right? So basically, this is how to create a data. This is how to create a table, right? This is how to create a table with constraints. This is how to create a table with constraints, right? So assignment will be that.
Sorry, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
This, you said this is how to create a table with constraints. Is it in column or on the table? Sorry.
This is column. Everything that we did there is column level, right? Everything that we did there is column level. We added the constraint after the column is specified. We added the constraint after the column. All of it. You see, their constraint came after them, right? Their constraint came after the column, right? This is column level, right? This is column level. I want us to stop before 7 so that I don't waste your time, or I know that some people are not even following me anymore at this point, right? But this is how to create. So next class we would go to how to create constraint at table level, right? How to add constraint at table level, and yeah, that's what we'll do. That's what we'll start from next class. Any question before I give you assignment?
Sir, please, what do you mean when you say column level and table level? Sorry, I didn't get that.
Okay, we said when we say column level and table level, right? We said that when you name the column, look at this situation. I said matrix number, right? And I specify the data type, and I specify the constraint immediately. This is me naming the column at a column level. Don't worry about table level.
Okay.
You understand table level next class. Table level is that after you have named all the table, then you would name the column, you name the constraint. But just understand that this is column level constraint constraint naming. After you name the column, you put the constraint. After you name the column and the data type, you put the constraint. After you name the column and data type, you put the constraint. And you see that it is consistent downward till the end of the code, right? It is consistent to the last of the code. After we named the column, this is the column, this is the data type, this is the constraint, and this is the condition for this constraint. Do you understand?
Yes, sir. Okay.
But the two gives you the same result.
Eh?
But it just did it in a different style. The two
Yes.
gives you the same result, but you did it in a different style.
Yes, they did it in different style, and their system of creation, the rate at which they are created is different, right? We'll talk about that maybe later. I'll explain why the system does that or why it is done that way. The time it takes for them to be created is usually different, right? One is faster than the other.
Okay.
Of course, we usually do not know because it will be created under seconds, under microseconds. Do you understand?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any other question?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask, you see on the column and the table, how to create them. So why don't you just create the table instead of saying column? Or I don't understand.
We are creating the table. See, we are creating, this is create table, right?
Table.
We are creating it. Inside creating the table, this is our entity, right?
Yes.
Matrix number is an attribute of the entity. So we're creating a table whose name is student and whose first column would be matrix number. Matrix number column would have a data type of init or int, that's integer, and it will carry a constraint called primary key.
Okay.
Right? So that is how you continue to name each of your column to the end.
Okay.
Any other question? Any other question? All right. If there are no other questions, right? Yesterday I said create a database with your name of choice. Inside that database, then using the entities created from the last assignment, convert these entities to tables, right? Now, adding to that, we'll now say that 3. Add while creating tables, add the necessary constraints to the columns, right? Now, these assignments, right? I would advise that we do them. You do them individually and you do them collectively, right? I would expect that people will come to the group and come and discuss it and help each other out. Where you do not understand, come on the group and ask questions. Somebody else would help you that way, right? As much as you want to work individually, you're also supposed to work in a team. That is the way to learn, right? We don't learn programming in isolation. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when you are creating yours, oh, this is what I've done. This is where I'm stuck. This is I don't understand what you're saying, what you said here. Can anybody explain? And that way you will discover that you understand and you'll be able to get the assignment done, right? So please, at the end of this, you'll be creating 5 tables. Remember that the previous assignment was that you create 5 entities. So you'll be creating 5 tables that has constraints, right? You'll be creating 5 tables that has constraints on them. All right, so I'm going to save this code and I'm going to send it to you on the group as well. It will be a continuation. Of course, it's a continuation on what we have yesterday, right? So, any question before I proceed? Before we leave class, sorry. Any other questions?
Yes, but it's not pertaining to today's class. Just something you explained earlier.
Okay.
Like you creating a different window, desktop or window something. That okay. When you save, right?
Yes.
Is it going to specify which of the windows or which of the stuff of the desktop you're going to save on? And how do you?
I don't understand what you're saying. Please make me understand.
Okay, when you said we should do tab windows or tab alt, yes, go to a toggle between windows, and you can also create. Yeah. So when you do that, you say you can actually have a windows for your programming, for watching movies, and for all of that. So how do you
doing this? You use
go?
Windows and Tab.
Yes, I okay.
Windows and Tab. So how do you?
When you add, like I'm seeing new desktop, and you create a new desktop, and then you probably use the front of the desktop for just your SQL something. Is it going to still show a different one, a different desktop, or the same, or added? I don't know how to explain.
I get what
Like
you're saying. I get what you're saying. Don't worry. The desktop is the same. If you look at it, My desktop is the same, right? Look at this desktop. Let me show you this desktop. Windows D. You want to go to your shortcut to your desktop is Windows D.
Windows B.
Windows D. Windows button plus D.
Desktop. Okay.
Hold on. Let's exit this PowerPoint. Get out. Discard. All right. So look at my desktop. This is my desktop, right? Can you see it?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So if I create another desktop, that's the new desktop. Are they not the same?
Okay, it's the same.
It's the same. It's like you have one computer, but you have one computer, but you have multiple computers. It's like you replicate your computer in multiple places, right? So if I work on this place, right? If I work on desktop 2, right? Let's assume I work on desktop 2 and I save on desktop 2. If I go to desktop 1, I'll be able to see what I did in desktop 1.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So, like for example, here I'm running all of this, right? Look at it. I want to show you something, right? Let me open. Let me open this dance or gospel dance or okay, no, don't let me open it here. Sorry, my system is dragging. It has worked and his head wants to blow. Right? What are you doing now? Stop dismissing your uncle. Just give me a minute. Let it come on. Come on now. Explorer. Hold on, it's coming up. Okay, perfect, right? Now look at this place. If you look at it, my file explorer is not on. Can you see my icon? This file explorer is not on, right? I'm not using it. Are you following me? I'm not using it. Right. If I go to my new window, let me close it. Now came on. Right. So it's not on. There's nothing coming up here. So if I go to my new desktop and I open a file explorer, let me open this dance all. Right. Can you see? I opened. So in this place, in this new desktop, this is what I opened. Right.
Yes.
If I close this desktop, remember there's an activity inside that desktop. If I close that desktop, right, and I come to my original desktop, can you see that the dance all is opened here?
Yeah.
It was opened in another document, in another desktop, but I closed that desktop. Everything that I was doing there would transfer to my main desktop. Do you understand? That way you will not lose information. That way you will not lose what you are doing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the essence of that. All right. Any other question before we call it a day here? Thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed class today. I hope you learned a lot. We've done about 4 hours of class today already. 4 hours of class today already. I hope you learned. Please do your assignment. You can always reach me on WhatsApp or through calls if you have any question, right? And like I said, the things that you're learning here are not, or that you're learning now, most of you are not familiar with it. So it might look foreign, but follow the instructions that I've given, follow my examples, follow the explanation. If possible, watch the video again so that you can, the more you practice it, the more you understand it better, right? It's as simple as that, right? It's as simple as that. 2 minutes to 7, I will beg to say, let us draw the curtain of this class today. There's no question. Thank you for coming. God bless you. See you next Saturday. Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, sir. The assignment you gave us, are we to create a new database, or is the one that you said we should
create? Is the one that I
said
use
for that?
Yeah, it's one I
The
said.
first one.
Yes.
The first one.
The first data set. Yeah, the first database that I asked to do.
Okay. I think drop the video.
Remember, I gave you an assignment yesterday, and that assignment that I gave yesterday was dependent on the assignment from last week, right? So
yes.
We are building it like that. And so what you are going to do, the assignment for today.
We are building on it.
Yes, the assignment for today is.
We are building on it.
You're going to do that on what you are supposed to do yesterday. Yes.
Okay, so please drop the video. You have to go through it.
Yes, I will. I'll send the link.
You are dropping it today.
What is it?
Today.
Are you
dropping it today?
I'll do my best. I have to upload it on YouTube, then I'll drop the link. I'll do that today.
Okay.
Before 12 minutes, you get it.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Good night, everybody. God bless you. Thank you for sticking.
Good night, sir.
Coming to class. Good night, Tricia. Good night, everybody.
Thank
you for coming. Good night.
Good night. Good night. Thank you.
I hope you are enjoying class. I know.
Yes, so I'm trying my best.
Don't worry, the further process you understand as well.
Right. Please upload the videos so that we can watch it. Yeah.
I will.
Thank you.
Peace, everybody. Peace in the middle.